Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening, but his presence was undeniably dominant, to the point where no one tried to fight him. A tense silence hung over the beach as the inhabitants processed what had just happened. As I said, this is the territory of the Straw Hats now, declared Luffy, his voice echoing across the beach. No one needs to point weapons. We came in peace, but we won't hesitate to protect what is ours, so think twice before attacking any of us. I'll dominate this country, for better or for worse. Luffy no longer had a calm smile, his tone and eyes were serious. He wasn't a selfless person and would do tyrannical things to achieve his goals if necessary, although his approach always begins with a win-win. The residents hesitated, but Luffy didn't leave room for doubts. He released his conqueror's haki once again on the beach, pressing everyone and extinguishing any trace of a will to fight. It's really an interesting ability. Lami commented as she arrived next to Luffy with Usopp. Yeah, but Luffy didn't need to go overboard, look at them. Kuina said, approaching as well. Everyone was kneeling on the ground, with defeated expressions. They'll survive, let's start our journey on this island. Everyone disembark from the ship. Luffy walked toward the crowd and addressed a large man dressed in green armor, clearly a local leader. I'm Monkey D. Luffy, as you know. Can I know your name, and can you do a favor for me? I'm Dalton. What do you want? We've already lost almost everything, we have nothing more to offer from our land. The man replied, expressing the resignation that dominated the community. Don't get so downhearted, I came to take this kingdom for myself, but don't worry, I intend to make it return to its former glory. Just gather everyone from the island in the town, and we'll announce my future plans for this place. Luffy said, and Dalton had no choice, as no one else could go against the will of this pirate anymore. The crew members were already leaving the ship at this moment. Luffy asked them to bring the doctors, and 20 people left the ship, surprising the beach inhabitants. The doctors, now freed and grateful despite the treatment isolating them from the crew, were still well treated. Thus, they began approaching the people, offering assistance. Dalton, do what I asked, gather all the people from the kingdom and take me to a place where I can speak to everyone. Luffy instructed him, and the man accepted. Dalton rose with a resigned expression, aware that he didn't have much choice in the situation. Luffy, along with his crew, accompanied Dalton, and as Luffy shrank his ship, the crew headed to the town with the group of men from the beach and doctors. The inhabitants of Drum, accustomed to living under different kings and dealing with pirates, felt a mix of fear and distrust with the presence of the Straw Hats. Tension was visible in the air as people watched Luffy and his comrades move through the city as if on a stroll. The Straw Hats followed Dalton to the main square, where news of the pirates' arrival began to spread rapidly. The looks intensified, and the expressions of the population ranged from dissatisfaction to fear. But Dalton also conveyed the message for everyone to gather in the square where the future of the country would be decided. It took 30 minutes to gather 5,000 people, 99% of the population of this small and isolated country. The main square of the Drum Kingdom was bustling with the presence of the inhabitants gathering to hear Luffy's words. Looking at everyone in the square, with the initially tense atmosphere being enveloped by the captain of the Straw Hats' speech. I am Monkey D. Luffy, captain of the Straw Hats. As many of you know, this kingdom is now under our possession. As the Drum Kingdom is now our territory, we killed Wapol and brought back the doctors he stole. But I didn't come here to sow fear or take something from you. In fact, I am here to offer an opportunity. I don't intend to meddle in who will be the king of this country, and I won't make political decisions for the country, but I want the development of the Drum Kingdom with medicine. There are roles here that will be destined for the future governance of the country. Luffy announced. The inhabitants murmured among themselves, clearly concerned about what the future held. I don't intend to be a tyrant. On the contrary, I want to help bring prosperity back to Drum. For that, I need everyone's cooperation. I need volunteers willing to work to rebuild this kingdom, and I promise it won't be in vain. We will pay justly for your efforts, resulting in a more prosperous country with many allied kingdoms already linked to me. Luffy continued. Luffy paused for a moment, allowing his words to be absorbed by the crowd. But the choice is yours. If you decide to resist, we'll have to take measures to ensure stability. However, I hope we can work together for a better future. Let's restore the Drum Kingdom to its former glory, with the effort of all of us. The crowd remained silent for a moment, processing Luffy's words. The captain of the Straw Hats hoped that his intentions were understood, and collaboration would be the choice the population made. Luffy also maintained a serious but determined posture. He knew that the key to successful collaboration was gaining the trust of the inhabitants of Drum. The challenge was set, and now it depended on how events would unfold in the city. If we work together, we can make this place a true powerhouse. Let's build a better future for everyone, and I will take care of and protect this country so that nothing like before happens again. Luffy concluded. By mentioning Wapol's defeat and the recovery of the doctors, Luffy captured the attention and gradually the respect of those present. He showed them that his intention was not to impose tyrannical leadership but to provide development and prosperity, so Luffy began to speak of his ideas primarily focused on the field of medicine, which was the path he would like this country to take. The speech continued, highlighting the potential of the Drum Kingdom as a medical school and the need to work together to build a better future. The mention of roles destined for the future government demonstrated the commitment of the Straw Hats to the autonomy of the kingdom, even mentioning potential allies in this sea and even in the East Blue. By concluding his speech with the promise to protect and care for the country, Luffy broke the remaining resistance. The residents, realizing that the actions were not as bad, even for pirates, since their country had reached such a low point with a tyrannical king who wiped out all the doctors and a pirate named Blackbeard who just plundered the country, didn't they need a light to improve their lives? Luffy and the Straw Hats began to be a new hope as this unexpected leadership. The initially apprehensive residents began to see Luffy with respect. His actions spoke louder than words, and the former Drum Kingdom was about to start a new chapter. At this moment, an elderly woman, whose presence initially went unnoticed among the busy residents, had a keen and observant look among the crowd. Her piercing eyes, even though elderly, held an intensity that indicated unparalleled wisdom, and she listened to all of it with crossed arms. While the population focused on Luffy's words, this mysterious woman, whose name was Kira, began to advance towards the square, exploring the changes that were beginning to unfold. Her calm yet curious presence suggested that she was about to get involved significantly in this new chapter of the Drum Kingdom's history as well. Chapter 126, Drum Kingdom O2. The bustling square of the Drum Kingdom fell abruptly silent as Kira, the mysterious elderly doctor, entered the center stage. Her steps were gentle, yet each carried unquestionable authority. The murmurs of the crowd ceased as everyone turned to face the newcomer. Kira, with her peculiar attire almost immune to the cold and stern expression, cast a piercing gaze across the square, her eyes fixing on Luffy. She raised her wrinkled hand and silenced the crowd before even opening her mouth. "What is all this?" Her voice, still strong with a touch of hostility, echoed through the area. The atmosphere, previously charged with expectation, became tense with the imposing presence of the elderly woman. Luffy, on the improvised stage, looked at Kira with a neutral expression, but his instinct indicated that this would not be a peaceful visit. Kira, with her commanding presence, crossed her arms while staring at Luffy. The square remained silent, only broken by the chilly wind whispering through the snow-covered buildings. "Who are you, insolent pirate, who dares to enter our kingdom and claim rights to what does not belong to you?" Kira questioned, her rough voice cutting through the air. Unfazed, Luffy, maintaining his calm expression, responded with his typical confidence. "I am Monkey D. Luffy, captain of the Straw Hats. I am taking this kingdom as my right of conquest, but I am not petty enough not to take care of my territory with positive changes. I am not here to be the king of this place, Granny. I just want to ensure that this kingdom prospers, and it will have many allies." The old woman let out an ironic laugh. "Positive changes? You, who topples kings and claims territories, speak of positivity. Don't make me laugh, boy. I'm not here to be the king of this place, Granny. I just want to ensure that this kingdom prospers, and it will have many allies," Luffy replied, his gaze unwavering. Kira, maintaining a piercing look, directed her words at Luffy. "So, you're another ambitious pirate seeking to expand your empire at the expense of others. Doesn't surprise me." Unperturbed, Luffy smiled confidently. "I don't hide my intentions, Granny. I want to strengthen this kingdom, not to become a king, but to create a strong alliance that can withstand the challenges we will face in the future." The elderly woman frowned. "A strong alliance? Do you think we can trust a pirate to lead something like that? Trust is something that is earned, I know that. Let's prove it with actions, not with empty words," Luffy asserted, his determination evident. Still skeptical, Kira crossed her arms. "You will have to prove much more than that, young pirate. I'm not easily convinced. Show me what you're capable of, then. The tension in the air heightened, and the frozen square seemed to be the stage for an imminent confrontation between a symbol of its kingdom that rarely left the mountain and a notable pirate who had just entered this sea. Luffy. Rage commented, but Luffy stopped her from speaking. Don't get involved, this is between me and this woman. If she wants to see if I have the strength to protect this country, so be it. Luffy said firmly. Kira advanced towards Luffy with surprising agility for someone of her age. Her frail body seemed forgotten as she emanated an intense presence. Armament hockey enveloped her hands, indicating that she was not just an ordinary elderly woman. Instinctively, Luffy adopted a defensive posture, aware that Kira was a formidable opponent after seeing her hand coated with armament hockey. The first exchanges of blows were swift, each movement calculated, each attack executed with precision as they clashed right there. You're strong, Granny. Luffy commented, dodging a precise strike from Kira. The elderly woman did not respond with words but with a fierce attack. Her fist wrapped in armament hockey collided with Luffy's defense, sending shockwaves through the surrounding area. You think you can control this kingdom, but you'll have to go through me first, pirate. Kira declared, her determined gaze reflecting the resistance of the Drum Kingdom. The clash between Luffy and Kira reached a new level as they ascended into the air, defying gravity. The cold mist of the island surrounded them as their figures stood out against the sky. Luffy, with his superhuman strength, and Kira, skilled in the use of armament hockey, were about to engage in an impressive aerial battle. Each of Luffy's punches generated shockwaves that reverberated through the environment, creating a sound spectacle that echoed in the mountains. Kira, even at over 100 years old, glided through the air with grace and agility with moonwalk, skillfully evading Luffy's powerful onslaughts. Granny, you're fast too. Luffy exclaimed, surprised by Kira's agility. The elderly woman, in turn, threw a hockey-enveloped fist aimed at Luffy's face. He blocked it with his own fists, the impact generating a visible burst of energy. The exchange of blows continued, each movement accompanied by the impressive sound of cosmic collisions. Even without using the more fruit model, Amplify Human Devil Fruit, Luffy demonstrated extraordinary strength. His punches were quick and powerful, while Kira responded with refined skill in the use of hockey. The square inches the city of Drum watched the sky, both amazed and apprehensive at the intensity of the battle. This is strange, with your strength. Why did someone like you let Wapol, a tyrant, have this country in his hands? You could easily have dealt with him. Luffy asked, questioning why this woman didn't showcase this strength in the original work. Wapol was a troublesome youth, but I can't say we didn't have opportunities to straighten him out. His father, the former king, believed we could change him. I promised him that I wouldn't get involved in royal succession. So, you watched Wapol grow but chose not to intervene? Exactly. In a way, I feared that my influence could distort the process. But it seems that, by not intervening, I allowed things to reach this point, and when I realized it, the kingdom was burning. She said. And now you want to try to redeem that mistake by trying to stop a pirate from taking the country? Luffy smiled, trying to understand her reasons. This woman is fiercer than he initially imagined. She didn't respond, and the fight continued. As they fought, an aura of respect began to emerge between the two adversaries. Luffy realized that Kira wasn't just defending the kingdom, its mistakes, and its ideas, she was protecting the heritage and tradition of this place and seemed to fear that Luffy's actions could bring the world government to her doorstep. Kira, in turn, witnessed the tenacity of the young pirate, who, even without knowing the political nuances of this country, brought with him a vision of change and possible new prosperity. In a moment of temporary truce, Luffy and Kira floated in the air, exchanging intense looks. Mutual respect was there, despite the differences. Luffy, with his characteristic smile, spoke, Granny, I don't want to destroy what's important to you. I just want to make this place amazing for everyone. Surprisingly, Kira nodded. You're more than you seem, pirate. But I still won't hand over Drum easily. While the punches thundered and shockwaves shook the air, Luffy and Kira found themselves in a brief moment of pause, floating in the frozen air. You're powerful, young pirate. But you don't understand the tradition of this place, said Kira, her eyes expressing the wisdom of many years. I understand that you want to protect it. But Drum needs changes, and I can bring that without erasing its history. Do you think this peace will last forever? Even without the country under my flag? Luffy replied, showing genuine respect. Kira laughed, a laugh that echoed in the starry sky. You're naive, Monkey D. Luffy. Do you think you can bring about changes without disturbing the balance? Do you think the government will allow a country to be under the possession of a pirate? I don't know about balance, but I know when something is wrong. I can't just ignore it. I'm willing to finance and protect this country, but I want something in return, which is fair. Luffy retorted, his expression serious. The old doctor frowned, pondering the words of the young captain. Your determination is remarkable, but sometimes the path of change is more complex than it seems. As they discussed, the fight resumed with renewed vigor. Luffy and Kira exchanged words and blows, each seeking to understand the other's point of view. You're a peculiar pirate, Monkey D. Luffy. Maybe there's something in you worth considering, said Kira, launching an agile strike. I will still be the man who will dominate all the seas, and I will show everyone that I can make all my territories prosper and be amazing. In the future, there will be a war that will involve the whole world, and Drum won't be able to escape it. It will have to take a side. I just want this country to prosper until that moment, to survive what is to come. Luffy affirmed seriously, blocking the strike with determination. And you want Drum to fight for you? She acknowledged. As I said, Drum will choose a side, whether you like it or not. Luffy asserted again. Your words are absurd, it seems this will be a war related to you. How do you plan to overcome the challenges that will come, as it appears you will fight against the world? Kira spoke, but her tone wasn't mocking or as if she had heard something absurd. It was as if she acknowledged Luffy's words, as if this war was already much predestined. With the Straw Hats by my side. Each of us has our own strength and abilities, and together we are unstoppable. And this won't be just with my main crew, my fleet, my territories, and allies. I believe in empowering people so they can build their own destiny. Luffy maintained his serious gaze. Kira didn't say anything, she just let the fight continue. The aerial dance continued, but now it was accompanied by an exchange of ideas between two individuals who, in different ways, sought a better future for the Kingdom of Drum. Feeling the intensity of the battle increase, Luffy decided to use his entire arsenal to end the confrontation. With a determined smile, he activated the powers of his mythical zone, assuming his hybrid form. His body increased in strength, gaining an imposing appearance. The blows he unleashed now were even more powerful, and the sound of shockwaves resonated through the sky with his flames. Despite her experience and armament hockey, Kira began to retreat under the overwhelming impact. Luffy advanced with a series of blows, each punch carrying the concentrated force of the devil fruit. The snow spiraled around them, creating a surreal scene as the captain of the Straw Hats dominated the old doctor. You're resilient, but I can't let you hinder progress, said Luffy, his voice filled with determination. Despite her admirable resistance, Kira began to show signs of fatigue. Each punch from Luffy seemed to weaken her even more. The crowd watched in silence, surprised by the sudden turn in the fight. Finally, with a powerful punch that sent a shockwave through the frozen landscape, Luffy defeated Kira. She fell to the ground like a rocket, raising a snow explosion from the ground in the middle of the city. When the dust and snow cleared, Kira lay fallen, injured, and knocked out. Luffy returned to his normal form, looking at the elderly woman on the ground. I don't want to cause more trouble for this place. Let's work together to build a better future. The initially tense population began to shrink under Luffy's display of power. The captain of the Straw Hats once again proved that he was willing to fight for his ideals, even if it meant facing respected figures. Luffy picked up the unconscious Kira by the shoulder and turned his attention to the stunned Dalton in a corner of the square. Where is Kira's castle? Dalton, still somewhat surprised by what had happened, replied quickly. It's located on the Sky Mountain, at the northern end of the island. I'm going there, you can accompany me or stay here. I'll handle a specific matter with this lady in that place. Luffy informed his crew, who had also arrived at the scene. Without wasting time, Luffy created dark wings on his back using the primary phase and flew into the sky with a majestic movement towards the Sky Mountain. The crowd watched, now in silence, as the Straw Hat captain headed in that direction, wondering what was happening. Chapter 127, Drum Kingdom 03. While the residents of Drum were recovering from the strange battle that unfolded above the city, Luffy soared into the snowy sky in search of the peak where the elderly woman lived. There were doctors in the town who could take care of her, but Luffy came to this island for a reason beyond making it his territory for the upcoming Great War. He had to find a doctor who still resided in this country. With Lami on his ship, Luffy believed that two doctors were always better than one. With this mindset, he cut through the falling snowflakes as he flew at high speed. It didn't take long for him to spot Kira's castle. Simultaneously, in an ancient castle blanketed by snow in a lonely atmosphere, a strange creature wearing a small cap walked through the corridors with a medicine container in its hand. With furry fur and vibrant shades of brown, the little reindeer displayed an adorable and curious expression. Its large and expressive eyes conveyed a mix of innocence and intelligence, while its small legs ended in delicate hooves, contrasting with its furry appearance. This creature's name was Tony Chopper. He walked through the silent castle corridors, quietly organizing supplies in Kira's absence. Some time ago, Luffy had proclaimed with his resounding voice that the kingdom of Drum now belonged to the Straw Hats. His shout echoed throughout the island, reaching Chopper's ears as he was in the castle with Kira. The doctor hurriedly went out to check what was happening, leaving Chopper alone in the castle. I hope Kira-san comes back soon, it's so lonely here. Now, she went to the town to see where all that noise came from. Chopper murmured to himself. He headed to the room, organizing all the herbs and medicines. After that, he decided to spend time in the castle's library, trying to distract himself with books. It was where he used to spend most of his time, examining books and learning from Kira. Upon entering, a wave of loneliness hit him stronger than ever. The books, experiments, and memories of times past weighed on his heart. Sitting alone, Chopper began to reflect on his journey. He remembered when he consumed his devil fruit, the human fruit model, Sun God Nika devil fruit, becoming a human reindeer. Despite his extraordinary abilities, the cost was high, rejection not only from his own kind but even from humans who treated him as a monster. The devil fruit gave me incredible powers, but it also isolated me from others. I wanted to become stronger, but now I feel like I've become a monster. Chopper whispered, hiding his reindeer face in his front paws. Initially excited about his new human form, Chopper soon realized that the people in Drum Island didn't accept him. He became a solitary figure, a reindeer who wished to be human but was rejected by humans. His sadness deepened when he met Dr. Hilyuk, an eccentric doctor who welcomed him. Hilyuk not only accepted Chopper but encouraged him to pursue his dreams. Under Hilyuk's guidance, Chopper studied medicine, becoming a skilled doctor. However, his journey was not without loss. Hilyuk died many years ago, leaving Chopper alone once again. It was during this period of mourning that he met Dr. Kira, an equally eccentric elderly doctor who became his new mentor. Chopper continued to accompany Kira, learning from her extensive medical experience. He developed a strong sense of duty to help others, especially after Hilyuk's death. Despite his medical training, he still felt incomplete and longed for a place where he could truly belong. Boom. Suddenly, Chopper heard a noise from outside. He lifted his head, wiping the invisible tears from his eyes, and rushed to see what was happening. As he passed through the giant open doors of the castle, he saw the snow lifted as if something heavy had fallen in that place. I thought no one would greet me here, but it seems I was wrong. Ha 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 ha. A voice echoed from within the frosty commotion, and Chopper saw a strange figure, humanoid, but with a very peculiar upper part. A monster. Chopper shouted in alarm when he saw it. Ha ha ha. I won't deny that, but it's too early for you to say that, little reindeer. The voice became visible and revealed a Luffy carrying Miss Kira on his shoulder, hence the strange form in the shadow. Suspicion. Well, it's just a stranger with Kira-san all injured on his shoulder. What? Kira-san. What happened to you? Doctor, someone call a doctor. Urgent. We need a doctor here. Chopper began shouting in despair. There's no doctor around here. The stranger spoke, casting an amused glance at little Chopper shouting in despair. Wait, there is a doctor. I'm a doctor. He had his moment of realization with this. Where do I put this lady? Luffy asked. Come quickly, take her to one of the beds in the castle. Chopper quickly began to show the way while Luffy followed behind. Put her on the bed, I'll check her condition. Luffy obeyed and laid her down on the bed, sitting beside her. While Chopper continued to care for Kira, Luffy stood by, watching the scene with a mix of seriousness and nonchalance. It was after 10 minutes that he finished examining and bandaging the woman. Dislocated arm, some fractures in the legs, and even 2 broken ribs. What happened to her? Chopper asked the man sitting there. We had a disagreement, and I hit her. I see. What do you mean, hit her? You did this to Dr. Kira? Chopper made a comical face in a furious look. He was completely outraged at the idea that Luffy would have hurt his precious mentor. Calm down, it was in a fight, Chopper. I had no choice. Luffy tried to explain, but Chopper's enraged expression didn't diminish. No choice? You could have been more careful. She's an elderly woman, you know. Chopper grumbled, continuing to tend to Kira's wounds. Luffy, on the other hand, just smiled with his typical carefree expression. He should be getting used to Chopper's exaggerated reactions, but he knew that, deep down, the reindeer cared deeply about everyone around him. So, you're a doctor. I've never seen a doctor like you? Luffy asked, observing Chopper closely. Yes, it's me. My name is Tony Chopper. Who are you? Chopper replied, maintaining a cautious stance. Luffy. Monkey D. Luffy. This country belongs to my flag. As you can see, I'm a pirate. A pirate? Chopper was startled by this declaration. Don't be so scared, I'm nice most of the time. Luffy laughed. You hurt Kira-san. Luffy sighed. It wasn't my intention to hurt her so much. I just wanted to make sure she didn't cause trouble. Chopper still maintained cautious behavior but remembered something. Wait, aren't you afraid of me? He finally recalled this fact because Luffy was sitting near him the whole time but showed no aversion to his presence. Why would I be? You're a pretty cute guy. Luffy smiled. Me cute? Chopper exclaimed, stunned. Besides, you're a quite competent doctor, as I could see. Luffy spoke, eliciting a reaction from Chopper. He seemed to have mastered one of the 6 paper art styles, as his body bent, and his face turned red with it. I'm not happy with your praise, idiot. He said, but his tone and behavior said otherwise. Hey, Chopper, have you ever thought about leaving this island and seeing the world out there? Luffy suddenly asked, trying to gauge the reindeer's interest in adventures. Chopper stopped with his strange behavior and looked at Luffy suspiciously. The world out there? He remembered the doctor telling some stories of adventures, and it always inspired him, but he could never leave this country. The only person who accepted him now was Kira-san. Yes, a world full of adventures and challenges, flying islands, seas that defy the laws of physics, desert islands, comical islands, islands with flora different from anything you've seen, islands with different animals like dinosaurs, underwater islands, and even islands inhabited by giants. There's a vast ocean out there, Chopper, waiting to be explored. Luffy exclaimed, his eyes shining with the excitement of his own words. Chopper, still with a mix of suspicion and curiosity, pondered over Luffy's words. The reindeer, who had always felt isolated and misunderstood, began to envision the possibility of a broader and more diverse world. Is there really a world like that out there? Chopper exclaimed. Yes, the sea is vast and full of secrets and adventures. That's why I'm a pirate, to venture through the sea with reliable and fun companions. Luffy said with his own charisma. Chopper was genuinely enchanted but soon remembered his life experience. But I'm not like you, Luffy. I'm a freak, a human reindeer. People reject me. Chopper murmured, reflecting on his own condition. Luffy, with a warm smile, placed a hand on Chopper's shoulder, who was surprised by the touch of this pirate. Don't worry about that, Chopper. Me and my crew are a bunch of weird people, each with their own story. We accept each other, no matter how different we are. Chopper looked into Luffy's determined eyes, feeling a spark of hope. For the first time, someone wasn't judging him based on his peculiar appearance. A wave of gratitude and surprise filled the reindeer's heart. What do you mean by that? Chopper, how about joining the Straw Hats and sailing the sea with us? Let's explore the world together and face incredible adventures. Luffy proposed, extending his hand in a friendly manner. Why are you asking this kind of question? Chopper spoke comically again. Chopper, perplexed by Luffy's proposal, scratched his head with his paw after calming down, expressing a mix of confusion and concern. He looked at Luffy's outstretched hand and then at the castle around him, which had always been his home. I appreciate the offer, Luffy, I really do. But my life is here with Dr. Kira. She took me in when no one else did after my father died, and now it's my responsibility to take care of her. Chopper responded with a mix of gratitude and loyalty. Well, I'm rejecting your refusal. Luffy spoke shamelessly. What kind of logic is that? Chopper shouted at Luffy. It doesn't matter, I've already decided. I'll leave this country only after you accept my offer and join my crew as the second doctor. Luffy said confidently. Chopper, who was starting to like this human, who even after hitting Kira-san, still treated him normally, began to feel fear from that gaze. He seemed obsessed with trying to take him to the sea, which scared the little reindeer. Some time later, Kira opened her eyes for the first time since her fight with Luffy. Ugh, I feel my bones starting to creak with age. Am I entering middle age at 138? The woman pondered, displaying a tired smile. Doctor. Chopper's animated voice echoed through the room. Chopper? I'm here then. I remember fighting with an arrogant brat and losing the fight. I didn't even stand a chance when he turned into that monster. Kira commented, recalling the events. Monster? That man? Chopper was stunned. That man? Is he here too? Kira asked, her expression becoming more serious. Yes, he brought you and is outside shirtless, doing some training. Chopper informed. That insolent brat. Kira growled and looked at the small Chopper. Hey, why do you have that face? Did something happen? Chopper hesitated before answering. Did he do something to you? Kira questioned seriously. No, but he told me he'll only leave when I accept joining his pirate crew as one of his doctors. Chopper explained. He wants you? Surprise reflected on Kira's face. And is he out there waiting for your answer? She asked again, quickly. Yes, but I refused, however, he refused my refusal. How is that possible? Chopper expressed his concern, Not knowing how to deal with someone refusing another refusal. He's tricking you, that's not possible. Kira scoffed, but her eyes sparkled with interest. So he'll stay until you accept, huh? Interesting. Soon, she sensed something through her observation hockey, focusing on the man outside. It seems there are more visitors coming. Let's welcome them, Kira declared, ignoring Chopper's protests. Doctor, you can't move. Nonsense, this is nothing to me. I'm still in my youth, she asserted, getting up from the bed and heading outside, with Chopper accompanying her. The ancient castle was about to welcome new visitors, and Dr. Kira wasn't about to miss the opportunity to showcase her exuberance and hospitality. Chapter 128, Drum Kingdom 04. In the midst of a mountain, with snow falling all around him, Luffy embarked on his training to understand and develop hockey. Clad in clothes ill-suited for the weather to face the intense cold, he did not let the hostile nature of the environment interfere with his determination. Sitting in a meditative position, Luffy closed his eyes and began to focus his mind. He sought to tune into the energy currents within himself, exploring the fundamental principles of hockey. As snow accumulated on his shoulders, he remained steadfast in his quest for this power. With each controlled breath, Luffy attempted to detect the subtle presence of hockey. His hands rested on his knees, and his mind worked tirelessly to unravel the secrets of this ability. It was not an easy process, it was a journey of self-discovery and patience, even multiplied by 8 times. Snow fell silently around him, providing a visual trail of his training time. Small signs of progress began to manifest. Perhaps they were fleeting glimpses of intuition, a passing sensation of connection to something greater. His hockey was far from fully developed, but he was beginning to grasp the essence. From time to time, Luffy opened his eyes, observing the frozen landscape around him. He could feel the presence of tiny ice particles as they fell, a metaphor for the subtlety of the hockey he sought to master. Luffy. A voice cut through the silence of the snowstorm, and 2 shadows leaped in his direction. Rage gracefully landed next to Lami. Oh? You're here. I was wondering if you decided to settle in the city. Luffy smiled at his companions. Of course not. Wouldn't miss the chance to prove that I'm better than this woman here. Lami declared confidently. Who said you won? It was me, obviously. Rage commented, casting a challenging glance. Didn't you see that I was ahead of you? I knew you had some mental problems, but I didn't know you also had vision difficulties. Maybe I can help you, after all, I am a doctor. Lami crossed her arms, displaying an expression of superiority. Do you want to die, gothic woman? Rage taunted, throwing a challenging look at Lami. Bring it on, cheeky cook. Lami responded promptly, showing a determined expression. Stop, both of you. Luffy emerged between them, delivering a precise punch to each of their heads, causing the fight to cease instantly. Captain. They protested, complaining about the pain caused by the punches. Luffy ignored the complaints. Anyway, the others are coming. He observed the sky, where small shadows were beginning to appear. Nojiko, Usopp, Kuina, and Shirahoshi skillfully appeared using moonwalk. Luffy. You didn't kill that old lady, did you? Kuina was the first to speak. Of course not. She's fine, and there's a very competent doctor taking care of her, who will soon be our Nakama. Luffy smiled, sharing the news. Nakama? Are you recruiting someone from this country, Luffy? Usopp asked, demonstrating curiosity. Of course, and did only you guys come? Where's the rest of the crew? Luffy examined the group. Everyone stayed in the city, except for Bippo, who seemed to be discussing some bureaucratic and economic issues that you delegated to him. Some can't use moonwalk and chose to stay in the city. Explained Usopp. Got it. Anyway, let's greet our hosts. Luffy turned at that moment to the lady who was coming out through the castle's grand gate, accompanied by a small animal wearing a hat, Chopper. We've been getting a lot of visitors lately, haven't we, Chopper? Kira commented with her characteristic smile. Chopper shrunk at the mention, observing all those humans. I see you woke up. And Chopper, come and greet your new companions. There's a doctor among them too. Luffy smiled at the reindeer. Who is your companion? Chopper grimaced as he shouted, rejecting Luffy's words. Why not? I have the chance to have such a talented doctor with me. Luffy opened a smile. Who would that talented doctor be, you scoundrel? Do you think you can buy me with some compliments? Chopper activated paper art and began to contort his body, his face flushed. Hey, how cute. Shirahoshi said, looking at the reindeer with bright eyes. Who are you calling cute, you darned woman? Chopper attacked again. Although his words were one thing, his body expressed the opposite. Ha 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 ha. What an interesting group. Kira spoke, maintaining a smile. Come here, brats. Let's go inside for a bit. I'll prepare some tea. She headed inside the castle, and Chopper followed, still looking at Luffy and the others with caution and curiosity. "Let's go," Luffy said, and everyone began to follow him as well. "So, why do you want to take Chopper with you so much?" Kira asked as everyone settled in a room with sofas and served tea. "Because I've already decided, I'm taking Chopper with me. When I saw him, my senses told me he will become a valuable companion for my ship." Luffy spoke excitedly, sharing his decision with the whole group. Chopper was next to Kira at this moment, looking at Luffy stunned. Rachel, who was sitting next to Luffy, raised an intrigued eyebrow. "Sixth sense, huh? You're getting mystical now, Captain?" Luffy laughed carelessly. "I don't know how to explain, but I've always trusted my instincts, and they've never failed me. Besides, Chopper has something special, I'm sure." "Something special?" Chopper muttered. He had always been called a monster. He never imagined that there would come a day when someone would say he was special. Rachel looked at Luffy and then at Chopper, smiling. "He has a strange intuition, but I can assure you that when it comes to choosing companions, he usually gets it right. If he sees something in you, Chopper, it's because you're special. Chopper, as I said, I'm leaving only when I have your positive answer." "But I declined." "So, I declined your refusal, simple." Luffy smiled confidently, and even Kira found herself smiling. "What a cheeky brat. I hope you don't ask me to hand over the secret of my youth too," she said, leaving the women present stunned. "Anyway, I'll continue with hockey training. You can join me if you want." Luffy looked at the members who started this type of training and left the room. During the rest of the day, Luffy, Lamy, Rachel, Kuina, and Shirahoshi tried to manifest hockey in a large room inside the castle. Meanwhile, a reindeer watched them from a certain distance. "Oh. You're there." A voice came from behind Chopper, who faced Usopp for the first time. "Don't scare people like that," Chopper shouted. "Ha ha ha, don't get nervous," Usopp replied casually. "Anyway, you'll have to accept the captain's proposal. He usually doesn't give up when he has something on his mind." Usopp smiled. "Why? Why does he want me on his crew?" "I'm a monster," Chopper spoke, expressing his doubts. "Ha ha ha ha. If that's the problem, let me tell you something. Our crew is full of monsters." "Really?" Chopper seemed surprised. "Yes, there are powerful people of all races. Can you believe the captain can turn into a 50-meter monster? He almost destroyed an island a while ago." "What? Look there, we have a mermaid among the group." Chopper pointed to Shirahoshi training. "And not only that, we have a talking bear, a giant shark, a 400-meter whale, a duck, and a powerful dog." Usopp spoke with a smile. "Really?" Chopper seemed stunned. "Yes, we have all kinds of people on our ship, and if the captain wants you with the crew, he won't give up." Usopp spoke with a smile. Chopper looked at Usopp for a moment before distancing himself. He walked a bit, lost in thoughts about everything he had heard. A crew full of monsters? That phrase echoed in his mind. Chopper reached the library and began reading a book to try to forget these thoughts. "You seem quite stunned, Chopper." Kira appeared with a smile, still bandaged, while observing Chopper. The reindeer averted his gaze at this moment. "I see that humans' words got to you," she said calmly. "Dr. Kira, is it true that I could join a group outside of here, one that wouldn't judge me or call me a monster?" Chopper suddenly asked. The woman opened a wide smile. "Of course you can. I don't know them well, but I doubt they would disappoint you. Don't you want to go with them to the sea?" Chopper widened his eyes at this. "That. I can't. I have to stay here." "You don't need to stay here anymore, Chopper. I can take care of myself. After all, I'm still in my youth at 138. But this country's fate is already intertwined with that man, with or without you. This country is now your domain, and I couldn't do anything to prevent it from happening. Anyway, they don't seem like a group that would harm you. You have a unique chance in your hands. Maybe you finally found a group that fits you. This is your chance, and I won't stop you if you want to go with them." Chopper remained silent, and his gaze met the doctor's some time later. "Can I finally see the world? Can I make friends?" He held a gaze that began to form tears at that moment. "Of course you can, Chopper. You have a unique opportunity, and I hope you don't waste it." She spoke and left the room, leaving a pensive Chopper behind. Some time later, Chopper found himself on top of the castle, where the wind played with his fur. He seemed not to care about the cool breeze that caressed his face, keeping his gaze fixed on a specific pirate flag. It was something that represented his father, a memory that evoked a series of deep thoughts. The flag fluttered gracefully under the influence of the wind as Chopper found himself immersed in reflections and memories. He had before him the image that symbolized his roots and the journey that brought him there. Lost in his thoughts, Chopper barely noticed a shadow approaching behind him. Yo, Chopper. Why are you up here alone? Luffy suddenly appeared, with his characteristically lively tone. Luffy? Chopper was startled by Luffy's sudden appearance beside him. Ha ha ha. Don't be scared. I can see your interest in this flag. This is the doctor's flag. I see, it's very special to you, isn't it? Yes. It's all I have left of the doctor. Chopper spoke, and the two fell into silence, with only the sound of the wind hitting them. Why do you want me on your crew? Chopper broke the silence suddenly. Luffy looked him in the eyes and answered confidently. Because I like having strong and talented people with me, and you seem to be both. Plus, you're a doctor, and that would be incredibly useful for us, not to mention that you fit perfectly into our group. Luffy explained sincerely. Chopper hesitated for a moment, pondering the unexpected proposal. However, his loyalties to Dr. Kira and concern for the current state of the kingdom still kept him undecided, even after the earlier conversation with the doctor. I can't just leave everything behind. I have responsibilities here, and Dr. Kira depends on me, even if she doesn't admit it. Chopper expressed his concerns. Luffy, always straightforward, smiled. I'm not saying to abandon your responsibilities. It's not like you'll never see her again. But imagine the number of people you could help, and all the adventures we would have together. Don't you have a big dream? A big dream? Chopper was surprised. Yes, something that would make you defy everything to achieve, something that would make you fight the whole world to attain. My dream. Chopper thought, as a doctor, he wanted to create a medicine that would cure all the diseases in the world. Chopper continued to ponder the proposal, realizing that a choice like this couldn't be made hastily. Meanwhile, Luffy, patiently, awaited the reindeer's decision, aware that, in the end, the choice would be Chopper's. Chopper, still hesitant, spoke with a touch of sadness in his voice. You don't understand. I'm a monster that ate the human fruit model, human. People here don't see me as an equal. They fear me. Luffy looked directly into Chopper's eyes, understanding the weight of the reindeer's words. You know, Chopper, I have a bunch of monsters in my crew too. There's a fishman, 2 giants, and much more. To me, it doesn't matter. Monster or not, what matters is what you do and who you are. You save lives, right? That's amazing, and I want you with me as my friend. Friend? Chopper was surprised by Luffy's response, which seemed genuinely indifferent to the reindeer's physical nature. The captain of the Straw Hats continued, trying to convince Chopper that being different was something to be celebrated. You may be a monster, but we all are in some way. Look at us, a bunch of misfits sailing together with many shared dreams. Being unique is what makes things interesting. Plus, being a monster is not a problem for me or the crew. Accepting who you are is the first step to being free and pursuing your dreams. The intensity of Luffy's gaze conveyed his sincerity, as Chopper began to feel a flame of hope and acceptance, something he never thought possible for someone like him. Touched by Luffy's words, Chopper started considering the possibility of adventures beyond Drum Island. Still with doubts, he realized that Luffy's crew was composed of unique and extraordinary beings, each with their own singularity, and Luffy mentioned that there were even more in the city. Come on, Chopper, let's be friends. Join me, and let's turn the world upside down together. Luffy spoke and extended his hand at that moment. Chopper hesitated for a moment, but then, with a determined expression, extended his paw to shake Luffy's hand. I accept, Luffy. I'll go with you to the sea. System, crew, Tony Chopper has joined as a member of your crew, and so, amid the frigid scenery of Drum Island, a new alliance was formed. Tony Chopper, the reindeer doctor, was about to embark on a journey full of challenges, friendships, and discoveries alongside the Straw Hat Pirates. The future promised to be as exciting as the adventures that awaited this unusual crew. Chapter 129, Drum Kingdom 05. One day had passed since the arrival of the Straw Hats in the Drum Kingdom. Luffy stayed in the castle to ensure that Kira received the necessary care for her recovery before they set out. Over time, the elderly woman began to show signs that her injuries were improving, thanks to the powers of the more fruit model, Amplify Human Devil Fruit. Satisfied with the situation, Luffy decided to return to the city to share his plans with the people and the rulers of this kingdom. Luffy leaped from the castle along with the rest of the group, using Moonwalk to reach the city. As he soared over the area, he encountered those who could provide a better report of the situation, and Luffy descended in their direction. Bippo. How are things? Luffy approached Bippo, who was with Nico, Robin and Hugo, talking to Dalton. Captain, you finally made it. Bippo expressed his surprise as Luffy landed near them. Well, I had some matters to attend to and waited for Kira to get better. Luffy explained, and the rest of the crew landed behind him. Is she better? Dalton asked with a hint of concern. Yes, she's coming here, and I enhanced her recovery. She's in the prime of her life, as she always says. Luffy grinned, and the man nodded satisfied. Anyway, did we manage to implement all the initial plans we needed in this kingdom? Luffy turned to Bippo. Yes, Captain, I left all the treaties and plans formulated. I contacted the Dendenmushi of Kokoyasi Island and Goa Kingdom. I just need to pass information to Whiskey Peak and Syrup Village. Bippo reported, and Luffy nodded. That's good. Anyway, let's gather everyone and all the inhabitants. I'll share my final information and bid farewell. It seems like you'll be taking responsibility as the king of this place. Luffy addressed Dalton directly. I don't have a choice, do I? He sighed. You would have taken this place anyway. You were chosen by the people themselves, but I hope you can improve the conditions of this country. Yes, but that also involves creating an army. He said. That comes in the future. First, take care of the economic stability and development of the place. We'll talk about that later, and now you're protected by my flag. I doubt there's anyone in Paradise who can go against us, apart from the government and the navy, but Drum Kingdom is an independent kingdom. Luffy informed, and they headed back to the city square. In the center of the city, Luffy gathered the residents, who were now more willing to listen after the confusion of the previous day. He climbed onto an improvised platform, his straw hat swaying in the cold breeze. People of Drum. Luffy began, looking at the gathered crowd. Now that you are part of our territory, we have some plans to help rebuild this kingdom. He went on to explain his vision for the kingdom's development and its allies, including the mass recruitment of new doctors with commercial agreements to obtain resources that the Frozen Kingdom could not cultivate. Luffy proposed an initiative where current doctors would teach new talents, establishing a continuous learning cycle to reach the former glory. Let's build a strong medical country capable of taking care of everyone in this kingdom and even other kingdoms at sea. This will not only improve your health but also attract people from elsewhere to benefit from our medical services, declared Luffy, excited. As he spoke, some animals and crew members like Crew, Laboon, Megalo, and Chouchou distributed leaflets explaining the plan in more detail and encouraging inhabitants to join this cause. Furthermore, Luffy continued, we'll initiate infrastructure projects, build schools, train new doctors, and establish a large hospital. I want Drum to become a powerful and prosperous island, a place where everyone can live well. As Luffy shared his ideas, many residents began to get excited about the possibilities. The presence and actions of the Straw Hats were starting to inspire hope and confidence in the community again, despite their initially complicated entry into the country. Luffy had good intentions. Thus, he concluded the speech with an expectation left in the air for the entire population. As the day passed, the Straw Hat crew began to integrate into the life of the Drum Kingdom. Activities in the city now reflected Luffy's proposed new projects, some of which were already underway, and the atmosphere began to change positively. Additionally, the crew members took the opportunity to interact with the local inhabitants. During this time, Kira and Chopper appeared, and Luffy enthusiastically introduced Chopper to the rest of the group. Initially shy, Chopper had a chance to socialize when Bippo and Usopp decided to accompany him on an exploration of the city. The trio explored the bustling areas where many people were working to rebuild buildings and improve the city's conditions after Teach's attack. Usopp, always fascinated by stories and novelties, asked Chopper about his life before joining the Straw Hats. The reindeer shared his journey and how he found purpose after becoming a doctor. Usopp, in turn, told stories of his adventures, including encounters with mysterious creatures and heroic feats, leaving Chopper fascinated, as he believed everything Usopp said. Bippo, the polar bear mink, curious and friendly, quickly bonded with Chopper. The two shared unique experiences as crew members, and Bippo showed his enthusiasm in having a new friend. Chopper's shyness further improved when he met the other animals, who quickly made friends after each sharing a bit of their story and experiences. Meanwhile, other crew members like Shira Hoshi and Vivi interacted with the local inhabitants, spreading positive vibes and assisting in reconstruction activities. Luffy, on the other hand, was busy coordinating his crew's efforts and overseeing new recruits joining the proposed projects. He remained the focal point, inspiring the community to believe in a better future. Brogy and Dory returned to their normal size and began clearing the heavier debris. Drum was undergoing a transformation, not just physically, but also in spirit. The Straw Hats had left an indelible mark on the kingdom, bringing hope, progress, and a new vision to its inhabitants after all their misfortunes. At the end of the day, the final farewell arrived for the Straw Hats in the Drum Kingdom. The crew gathered on the coast, where the ship, the Black Pearl, was anchored and ready to set sail. A large number of people came to bid them farewell, including Dalton and Kira. The kingdom's inhabitants lined up to express their gratitude to the crew. Luffy, in his typical laid-back nature, thanked everyone for the time they spent together. Shira Hoshi hugged some local children, while Usopp received one last round of applause for his thrilling stories. Dalton, the former captain of the Kingdom's Guard, approached Luffy with a smile. "You've brought hope back to Drum, Monkey D. Luffy. You'll have allies here now." Luffy responded with a friendly nod, promising to keep all the plans in mind. The other crew members also received words of thanks and encouragement. With a mix of nostalgia and emotions, the crew boarded the Black Pearl. As the ship sailed away from the coast, the Straw Hats waved to the inhabitants of the Drum Kingdom, leaving behind a transformed place full of hope. As the island diminished on the horizon, the Straw Hat crew observed in silence, ready to venture into Alabasta. The sun set, painting the sky with warm hues and providing a farewell atmosphere to Drum Island. Luffy, still staring at the drifting island, was lost in thought. The tranquility of the moment was shattered when Robin appeared by his side. "Luffy, you look peculiarly at Drum Kingdom. Is there something about this kingdom that we don't know?" Robin inquired, demonstrating her ability to grasp subtle details. "It's hard to say. Drum, which means drum, makes me think this kingdom is special. Especially that Blackbeard, mentioned by the inhabitants. I feel there's something that doesn't fit here," Luffy mentioned, looking thoughtfully at the horizon, and Robin observed him with interest. "Is that Blackbeard special?" Robin asked, expressing her curiosity. "More than it seems. He shouldn't be underestimated and holds many secrets that even I don't know. His fruit, as the inhabitants mentioned, is the fruit of darkness and is the opposite side of Nika." "Nika? The sun god?" Robin inquired, showing surprise. "Nika is the god of the sun, joy, and freedom. What few know about the god is that he existed." "What do you mean, Luffy?" Robin was intrigued, eager for more information. "Nika is, in fact, a devil fruit," Luffy revealed, sharing a piece of the mystery surrounding Drum Kingdom, which seemed to have some connection to the Drums of Freedom if Luffy was correct. Robin pondered over this new information, indicating that Drum Kingdom held deep and intriguing secrets. Robin widened her eyes at this impactful revelation. "I don't know if there were other users of this fruit, but so far, only one person has released its full power, known as Joy Boy, the greatest enemy of the world government in the lost century." "Joy Boy," Robin murmured, absorbing the magnitude of what Luffy was sharing. "That's why I'm preparing and gathering allies. There will be a great war, Robin. Joy Boy is back, or should I say Joy Girl. A new era will begin, and the whole world will collapse. The world government will feel threatened, the war is coming, and I want us to survive the battlefield." "A world war?" Robin questioned, her eyes revealing a mix of concern and fascination. "Yes, and you'll play your part in it. One day, you'll reveal the entire lost century to the world, freeing people from their ignorance. You are proof that the world will enter this new era, just like Shirahoshi's birth during that time or even Nika's coming. Trust me, she will unleash her power. Even though she's still in the Marines, I doubt that will last forever." Luffy muttered the last part, leaving the uncertainty about Lucy's fate in the Marines hanging in the air. Luffy knew his sister would have a crucial role in what was to come, and he wouldn't hesitate to ask for efforts to help that girl he loved more than anyone. "I understand," Robin replied, feeling some hesitation in the face of an imminent war involving her dream. "Robin, this war is coming, with or without you. But do you want the world to remain in ignorance, or will you help them break free from the shackles imposed by the world government?" Luffy spoke seriously, locking his eyes onto Robin's deep blues. Robin began to say, but Luffy took her hands. "Regardless of what happens in the future, remember, Robin, we're here to support you. You're part of this crew, and I want you to fulfill your dreams." Luffy spoke, his face a bit too close to Robin's. "Thank you," she replied, averting her eyes from her captain. He was too close and was staring intensely, making even the usually expressionless Robin blush. "Hey, you two lovebirds, how long are you gonna stay back here alone? Zoro brought the barrels you asked for, Luffy, and they're already starting the feast. Are you gonna miss it for a little romance behind the ship?" Nojiko appeared, crossing her arms at the closeness of Luffy and Robin. "Ha ha ha. Let's go, Robin, we have a feast to attend." Luffy smiled and headed towards the deck. Luffy quickly joined the feast that was starting with Robin and Nojiko. The banquet aboard the Black Pearl was in full swing, with the Straw Hat crew enjoying a lively and relaxed celebration. Luffy, seated at the center, devoured large portions of meat while laughing and playing with the other members. "Zoro, you really know how to pick a good steak barrel," Luffy exclaimed, raising his mug in an improvised toast. "Of course, Captain. Without quality steak, a feast is not a feast," Zoro replied, smiling as he savored his drink. Meanwhile, Usopp was in the midst of telling one of his famous stories, involving exaggerated feats and imaginary monsters. The animals and some crew members laughed and applauded, enjoying the entertainment provided by the king of snipers. Chopper and Lamy approached the deck after Lamy shared the greenhouse and medical area of the ship. Chopper quickly filled his plate with a variety of delicacies. What an incredible feast! I'm so happy to be part of this crew. Chopper exclaimed. Yes, we have the best food and the best friends. Vippo agreed, nodding enthusiastically. Raju, the cook, was busy in the kitchen, preparing even more delicious dishes for the crew. He emerged from there, carrying a steaming platter. Eat this, it's my specialty. A secret recipe I learned from the best chef in the North Blue. A great feast, isn't it, Brogy? These little ones sure know how to throw a party, Dory. As the Straw Hats sailed towards Alabasta, the next destination in their journey, the atmosphere aboard the Black Pearl was a mix of joy and celebration. The sun began to set on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, providing a spectacular backdrop for the celebration aboard the Straw Hat ship. As they savored the food and raised their glasses to the next adventure. As the night began and progressed, the starry sky witnessed the festive banquet of the Straw Hats, marking another chapter in their incredible journey across the seas. Chapter 130, Journey to the Alabasta 01. While the Black Pearl glided majestically through the seas, cutting through the waves with a grace that mirrored the skill of its crew, in the iconic capital of Alabasta, Alubarna, two figures appeared in the sky. Yamato and Nami finally reached the coveted destination after many days of travel, stopping only at a few islands to rest. We're finally here. Nami exclaimed with her Garuda wings materialized on her back. The choice for the wing transformation was a strategic decision to conserve energy compared to Yamato's moonwalk technique. Let's head straight to the palace, instructed Yamato, gazing towards the palace. Let's go then. Nami affirmed, and both flew towards the palace with Yamato leading the way on which window they would enter, but the goal was simple, to find Vivi's father at this moment. Meanwhile, in the heart of the palace, King Nefertari D. Cobra participated in a crucial audience with his advisors in the opulent throne room. The atmosphere was filled with seriousness and deliberation as they discussed the growing dissatisfaction in the kingdom and the increasing number of rebels plotting a coup. The discussion continued until stealthy shadows penetrated the window, abruptly interrupting the meeting. All present turned their attention to the newcomers who didn't seem to want to be discreet. In a swift gesture, Nefertari D. Cobra rose from his chair, demonstrating the agility of an attentive leader. Pel, his most formidable guard, promptly assumed a prominent position, ready to face any threat from the mysterious intruders. A throne room. It's a bit different from the Goa kingdom. Yamato commented, her eyes scanning the magnificent details of the room. Every kingdom has its peculiarities, but aside from some details, all throne rooms typically have a large space with a massive chair in the center. They're all the same to me, except for some details. Explained Nami, as her Garuda wings gracefully dissipated from her back, as if they were dissolving into an ethereal breath. Cobra's urgent question echoed through the imposing room, cutting through the tense air, "Who are you?" And before the women could respond, someone intervened to inform the king at that moment. "Your Majesty, these are members of the Straw Hat Pirates. The woman with white hair has a bounty of 150 million. And the other woman has a bounty of 50 million. Hastily announced one of the ministers, revealing the impressive numbers associated with the visitors. 150 million? King Cobra was stunned by the magnitude of the bounty. "Yes, we are members of the Straw Hat Pirates," confirmed Nami, taking the lead in the introduction. "We are here for your safety because your daughter made a deal with our captain." The anxiety on Cobra's face was palpable. "Vivi? Is she okay?" "Yes, she was about to be assassinated by the organization she infiltrated. However, Luffy made a deal with her, an agreement that involves making Alabasta territory of the Straw Hats," calmly explained Nami, choosing her words carefully. "What? Alabasta becoming a pirate territory? What kind of request is that?" Pel growled, expressing the concern that hung in the air. "That was the agreement between my captain and your daughter, who is now also a pirate on our ship." Nami shrugged, expressing a casualness that contrasted with the gravity of the words spoken. "Wait? Vivi became a pirate?" Cobra exclaimed, incredulous at the idea of his daughter being a pirate. "Yes, but if you want to know more about it, you'll have to ask her personally when they arrive. We came ahead, but they should be arriving in the next few weeks." "Vivi?" Cobra, realizing that he could do nothing more than wait and question his daughter personally about the events, turned his gaze to the women before him. "And what exactly do you mean by my safety?" Cobra questioned, his eyebrows furrowed. "Simple. The information our captain gave us indicates that there are spies disguised in this place, infiltrators among the upper echelons, including council members and even several soldiers and servants. They are conspiring with Crocodile, planning to overthrow him as soon as they get the chance. Yamato and I will identify these spies, but know that it won't be for free. At the very least, we demand a luxurious stay in this place." Nami wasted no time and presented her demands with a determined expression. If she's going to be away from Luffy for a few weeks, she might as well have a comfortable stay to meet her needs in another way. Crocodile? What nonsense is this? Exclaimed a guard. He's a 7 warlords of the seas, why would he have spies in the king's palace? It's true, Crocodile protects this country. Spies? This is absurd, protested one of the ministers, disbelief written across his face at the shocking revelation. Slander against the High Council. Someone arrest these women. Guards. Another minister spoke at this moment. My king, we must get rid of these women. A third expressed his dissatisfaction. The room's air became dense with tensions boiling among the counselors. Yamato. Nami spoke in a serious tone. Yes. Yamato confirmed, her expression determined. Before anyone could react, an invisible wave swept through the room, emanating from Yamato's body. Yamato's conqueror's haki was an overwhelming presence that no one in this place could withstand. A second later, bodies began to fall, one by one. Guards from the room and the upper echelon, all unconscious on the floor. What is this? Cobra looked around and couldn't believe that not only the ministers and guards were collapsing unconscious, but even Bell, the kingdom's most formidable warrior, crumbled into unconsciousness before his own eyes. As the room was left with only the king standing and the 2 intruders in complete silence, Nami decided to break the atmosphere. This is called Conqueror's Haki, proof that the woman by my side is much more powerful than any of your guards. But don't worry, we are here as allies. Let's start with these guards and 3 ministers who started raising their voices accusing us. It's very suspicious for them to act this way when we mentioned spies. Were they spies all along? Cobra wondered. As the woman said, they could have harmed him without resistance with the demonstrated strength, but instead, they are here with a request from Vivi. It is fair to give credit to their words. Moreover, he had long suspected Crocodile but lacked evidence to affirm his theories. Throw them into the dungeon, we'll interrogate them later. Now, I want a beautiful room with a built-in jacuzzi. Nami wasted no time and demanded her requests, her resolute and unwavering tone. With this concession, King Cobra promptly fulfilled the women's demands, providing one of the palace's finest rooms. In the following days, Yamato and Nami intensified their investigations into the spies. Yamato refined her observation haki skill, leveraging notes passed on by Luffy. Meanwhile, Nami, with her natural shrewdness in reading people, traversed the palace, analyzing its residents. The palace was meticulously purged of all infiltrated spies in the coming days, ranging from servants to soldiers and the upper echelon itself, where Crocodile had offered generous rewards. Cobra could see how all the country's misfortune was orchestrated by the one they called the kingdom's hero after hearing quite intriguing things from the spies. Yamato and Nami's collaborative efforts revealed an intricate web of betrayal, clearing the king's palace of shadows threatening its security. King Cobra, witnessing the effectiveness and dedication of the women, couldn't help but acknowledge the importance of their presence and contribution, even if he might not have liked these women's initial approach. He was certainly grateful for it, as he never imagined he could have so many traitors by his side all along. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the distinct sound of footsteps echoed in the dark room filled with strategic maps. Crocodile, with his imposing presence, stared at Mr. One, his loyal ally, with an expression of restrained fury. "What are you saying?" growled Crocodile, his sharp voice echoing through the chamber. "The palace has been taken, and the king has formed an alliance with the Mugiwara members," explained Mr. One, maintaining a firm posture despite the tension in the air. Crocodile's anger reached its peak, reflected in an audible crack. As his powerful claw shattered the table before him, strategically arranged maps fell, witnessing the 7 warlords of the seas' explosive rage. "These damned pirates!" grumbled Crocodile, fists clenched in frustration. "What should we do?" inquired Mr. One, seeking guidance in the storm of emotions dominating the room. "Let's wait for the Vice Admiral to arrive. If that Yamato is in the palace, things will be complicated. I've received information that she has mastery over haki," declared Crocodile with a somber tone. He knew that this woman would end his invincibility if she possessed armament haki. "Yes, my lord," nodded Mr. One, acknowledging the gravity of the situation. With a respectful bow, he left the room, leaving Crocodile in a silence laden with intrigue and machinations. On a marine ship approaching the country, the sea breeze caressed the sturdy sails of the marine ship as it advanced determinedly towards the coast of Alabasta. On the deck, Vice Admiral Momonga, a stern figure in his officer uniform, watched the horizon attentively. "Vice Admiral Momonga, Alabasta is already in sight," announced one of the sailors, whose sharp eyes spotted the distant silhouettes of land. "That's good. Prepare to anchor the ship," ordered Momonga, his firm and authoritative voice cutting through the murmur of the sea wind. "Yes, Vice Admiral," promptly responded another crew member, who rushed to relay the orders to the sailors responsible for the anchoring operation. As the ship gracefully moved over the waves, the crew began preparing to take action on the lands of Alabasta. On the other side of Alabasta, Captain Smoker, "We're approaching Alabasta," a marine reported. "That's good, let's anchor at the port." Smoker replied calmly. "Do you think the Straw Hats have come this way, Captain?" Dashigi asked. "We intercepted that message, everything indicates that." Smoker replied, looking at the horizon, where Alabasta was beginning to emerge. In a port city of Alabasta, the sun's rays bathed the port city, painting a vibrant and welcoming scene. Amidst the characteristic sounds of a bustling port, Ace, the fearless commander of the Whitebeard Pirates' 2nd Division, disembarked from his iconic ship with a joyful expression lighting up his face. "I finally made it here!" exclaimed Ace, letting his excitement shine through in his voice. With the sea breeze lightly tousling his hair, Ace adjusted his hat and looked around with determination. The anticipation of reuniting with his brother, Luffy, pulsed in his chest. "I hope Luffy has already arrived. I'm going to start looking for him," declared Ace, beginning his journey through the city in search of the long-awaited fraternal reunion. His determined steps echoed through the bustling streets. Meanwhile, in the sea a bit away from Alabasta, a shadow appeared in the water. The vastness of the ocean stretched as far as the eye could see, a tranquil scene interrupted only by the gentle sway of the waves. On the horizon, a mysterious figure began to emerge from the depths, revealing itself as an imposing shadow. "I had seen the shadow from the ocean floor and came to the surface to confirm, but I never imagined it could be them," expressed Jinbai, his keen gaze fixed on the distant horizon, where the Black Pearl sailed, visible from over half a kilometer away. "I'll bring you back home again, Princess Sama," declared Jinbai, his tone resonating with the firmness of fulfilling the task assigned to him. Determined, Jinbai, the 7 warlords of the seas, dove again to reach the black ship with the Jolly Roger bearing the iconic straw hat. Chapter 131, Luffy vs. Jinbai. In the vastness of the ocean stretching in all directions, the Black Pearl cut through the waters as it could, thanks to Luffy's abilities that he reserved for training. For days on end, each crew member immersed themselves in their usual training, continuously enhancing their strength. Luffy led the way, dedicating himself to improving his haki along with some other members, while the rest explored new horizons in their respective disciplines, honing techniques they already mastered. Robin and Vivi, in particular, remained focused on developing their first technique of the 6 styles, striving for mastery. Meanwhile, the other crewmates refined their already mastered skills, each diligently working to perfect their abilities. A notable exception was Chopper, whom Luffy assigned to learn the mobility technique that the newly recruited girls had begun developing. A challenging task for the small doctor. Under Luffy's watchful eye, Chopper struggled to master the technique under the relentless pressure from his captain. "Come on. If this is all you can do, I'm disappointed." Luffy interrupted his own haki training to motivate the new recruits. Vivi growled in response, familiar with Luffy's peculiar coaching style, while Robin remained silent, furrowing her brow. However, the situation was different for Chopper, who pleaded for mercy in the face of Luffy's intensity. "Luffy. Mercy," whined the little doctor. "Come on, Chopper. Sea adventures require challenges, and challenges require strength. You can do better than that," Luffy insisted, despite Chopper's tears and protests, reminding everyone of the harsh reality of training aboard the Black Pearl. Everything was normal, though training was always a bit peculiar with Luffy shouting at some of them, until the group's swordsman entered the room in a hurry, having fetched some things from the stock for training. "Luffy, we have a problem." The radar detected something in the water, interrupted Kuina, appearing next to Luffy with a paper in hand. "Let me take a look at this," Luffy commented, taking the paper Kuina handed him. The print contained data from the advanced Black Pearl device, a notably superior ship with its own technologies. Among them, a radar designed to anticipate attacks from sea creatures, such as sea kings, at a certain distance, stood out. "This shape. Is it him?" Luffy fixed his eyes on the paper. The radar could only provide a black, colorless shape for the detected object underwater, and the outline of the shadow quickly led Luffy to make the connection with the person who had that shape. His gaze turned to Shirahoshi, who was focused on her haki training following Luffy's instructions. "It seems he's here for you, Shirahoshi." Luffy couldn't help but conclude internally. "Do you know who it is, Luffy?" Kuina asked, seeking clarification. "Yes, this is Jinbai, one of the 7 warlords. It seems he's after our mermaid," Luffy replied calmly, but his observers, Kuina, Vivi, and Robin, showed shock, while Chopper failed to grasp the gravity of the situation. Ignoring the surprised expressions around him, Luffy turned to the crew gathered in the training room. "Alright, let's wrap up the training. Looks like we'll have a visitor soon, so let's welcome him on deck." Luffy announced before leaving. The crew halted their training with Luffy's words, and although they had questioning looks, everyone followed the captain to the deck. On the deck, Luffy patiently awaited Jinbai's arrival after turning off the alarm, as the crew didn't need to be alerted about an intruder. It didn't take long for the 7 warlords of the seas to approach the ship. The water next to the ship stirred, and a shadow leaped from it, landing directly on the ship. Jinbai looked around and, upon realizing that everyone seemed to be expecting his arrival, showed a slight glimpse of surprise. Even though Luffy had anticipated a visitor with his words, seeing a large blue fish man was quite shocking for the crew members, especially those who already knew the identity of this particular merman. Jinbai-sama. Shirahoshi murmured, clearly stunned to discover that the visitor mentioned by Luffy was Jinbai. Hey! Jinbai-san. Ecchi was equally stunned. Who is he? Zoro asked. He's a 7 warlords of the seas. Lamy replied. What do we have here, a 7 warlords of the seas? I'd like to know your intentions for invading our ship. Luffy was the first to address the newcomer in a loud tone, crossing his arms with a serious expression. So, it's you, the Straw Hats. Jinbai commented, casting a glance at the entire group before fixing his gaze on Shirahoshi and Megalo. Princess, I've come to rescue you. I don't need rescuing. Shirahoshi spoke immediately, and Jinbai showed a surprised look at that. Luffy observed Jinbai with a serious expression, weighing every word the 7 warlords of the seas uttered. Jinbai's presence stirred a mix of feelings in the crew. The atmosphere was getting increasingly tense. Rescue, huh? Luffy said, keeping his gaze fixed on Jinbai. Shirahoshi is here of her own free will. I can understand you showing up to protect your princess, but if she wants to stay with us, there's nothing you can do. Shirahoshi, still processing Jinbai's surprise with her decision, gathered her courage to explain her choice. It's true, Jinbai-sama. I'm here because I want to be. Luffy-sama freed me, and I feel I can grow stronger alongside him. I've chosen to sail as a member of the Straw Hat crew. Sharky. Megalo expressed his support by her friend's side. Jinbai, upon hearing the young princess's words, fixed his gaze on her with a mix of surprise and disbelief. What? Princess, you can't be serious. What about your father and your brothers? They're worried about you. Shirahoshi, with a determined look, replied. Jinbai-sama, I miss them too, but I'm not ready to go back home yet. Only when I'm strong enough for it. She couldn't deny the twinge of pain when mentioning her father and brothers, but her commitment to Luffy and her dream was evident. She had to become strong enough to save her home from destruction. Princess, I can't believe this. Jinbai muttered, shifting his gaze to Ecchi, who was standing beside him. Ecchi, long time no see. Let me ask you something, why are you on the ship of the pirates who killed Darlong and most of his crew? Jinbai asked in a serious tone, showing concern and curiosity. Hey. It's hard to explain, but now I'm a pirate of the Straw Hats. Ecchi announced, expressing his belonging to the group, even though his initial recruitment had been forced. Over time, Ecchi began to appreciate the company and fun he found during the journey with the Straw Hats. Even you, Ecchi. Jinbai seemed stunned, turning his gaze to Luffy, who was at the forefront of the crew. I don't know what you did to them, but you better set them free. Just because you're Ace's brother doesn't mean I'll go easy on you if you deny that. Jinbai warned, serious and firm. Who do you think you are to talk to me like that? And I haven't done anything to them, they are my companions and members of this ship. You'll never forcefully take any of them. Luffy replied in a serious tone, flames beginning to dance all over his body, indicating an imposing and threatening aura with Luffy's growing anger. If that's how it is, then so be it. Jinbai prepared to attack Luffy at that moment, but what he wouldn't imagine was that Luffy was already in front of him, using his speed 40 times faster with instant transmission. Before Jinbai realized it, he was forcefully hit in the stomach, causing him to soar into the sky. The pain from the blow was so swift that he only felt it when his body was already hundreds of meters in the air. The impact launched Jinbai far away, demonstrating Luffy's astonishing speed and skill. How can he be so fast? Jinbai spoke in pain before starting to spit blood into the air. We're just getting started. A voice was heard behind Jinbai, and when the 7 warlords of the seas turned to attack, Luffy had already disappeared again to Jinbai's rear and punched him once more, sending him even higher into the sky. Damn. I'll have to take this seriously. Jinbai spoke, preparing for the fight more earnestly. Thus, Jinbai saw Luffy approaching, and both began exchanging blows in the air. The sky above the Straw Hat ship became a stage for the intense battle between Luffy and Jinbai. Luffy chose to fight without using a Momo at this moment. On the other hand, even suspended in the air and without any mobility technique, Jinbai did not let himself be taken by the disadvantage. They began exchanging blows as they approached each other in free fall, their fists colliding, creating explosive sounds in the air. Boom. 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 Seeing the deadlock with the battle evenly matched and without Jinbai using haki yet, with a serious look, Luffy initiated the transformation to the phase 2 of his mythical zone, assuming his impressive form. Jinbai's eyes narrowed, assessing Luffy's transformation. The purple scales, curved horns, and vibrant flames revealed the imposing figure as a small Ifrit drake. The atmosphere around Luffy trembled with the intensity of the flames he controlled. The fight began with Luffy advancing, and Jinbai waiting for him with a powerful water punch, which was skillfully dodged by Luffy using his newly enhanced agility. The ship swayed slightly with the force of the exchanged attacks. Luffy, now in Ifrit form, retaliated with punches propelled by amethyst flames. Jinbai's aquatic prowess proved to be an advantage, evading the fiery attacks while counterattacking with fluid movements, creating water from the molecules in the air. Luffy and Jinbai seemed to dance in the air, each showcasing their mastery in their respective fighting styles. However, Luffy couldn't afford to let Jinbai fall into the water. The 7 warlords of the seas' ability in the ocean would be quite problematic, and a fall would mean a critical disadvantage for Luffy. With Jinbai getting closer and closer to the water while in freefall, Luffy used his more fruit model, amplify human devil fruit, and swiftly kicked the fishman back into the sky at that moment. After Jinbai rose again, powerless against it, the battle continued with increasing intensity. Luffy and Jinbai exchanged blows, blocks, and dodges in a fast-paced choreography. Flames and water clashed, creating a unique visual spectacle. Noticing an opening, Luffy concentrated the flames in his right hand and unleashed a powerful punch against Jinbai. The 7 warlords of the seas blocked the attack, but the force of the collision created a shockwave that shook the sky, guiding steam with the meeting of flames and water, sending Jinbai airborne once again. Seeing that he was at a tremendous disadvantage and how he had underestimated this 200 million bounty pirate, his fist began to turn black, and Luffy began using his more fruit model, amplify human devil fruit at 5 times its strength to counter the opponent's haki as soon as he saw it. Luffy advanced towards Jinbai in the air the next moment before both fists collided. The pulsating energy around Luffy gained intensity as his strength multiplied several times, contrasting with the darkness manifesting in Jinbai's hand. The clash of powers created an electric atmosphere with steam permeating the sky, while the two fighters faced each other with determination. "You're stronger than I expected, Straw Hat," Jinbai exclaimed, his voice firm despite the challenging situation. Luffy, still in Ifrit form, stared at Jinbai with determined eyes. "I said we were just getting started, Jinbai. Now, let's see what you're capable of." The battle in the sky continued, with Luffy and Jinbai exchanging increasingly intense blows. Ifrit's flames and Jinbai's haki-coated aquatic fists collided, creating shockwaves that echoed through the ship's deck. Luffy, realizing the growing threat of Jinbai's haki, focused even more on his multiplication fruit. Increasing his strength from 5 times to 10 times, his blows seemed to surprise his opponent at this moment. The Straw Hats watched with admiration and concern. "Should we help the captain?" Chopper exclaimed. "No, Luffy doesn't like us getting involved in a fight others are having without the threat of death." Rages spoke. "And as you can see, my husband seems to be winning against the 7 warlords of the seas." Alvida commented. "Winning? It looks more like he's playing." Lami spoke, her eyes fixed on the fight. "Incredible, this is Luffy's strength, he can even play with the 7 warlords of the seas?" Vivi was still trying to process it all. "He is falling into the sea," Usopp exclaimed. "Look, the captain is approaching." He kicked him again into the sky. Hugo applauded for his captain at that moment. "Jinbai-sama." Shirahoshi looked with mixed feelings at this. "Hey, Jinbai-san." Haki also seemed quite shocked by this. The battle reached its climax when the two warriors collided in an unparalleled force clash. The clash between Jinbai's haki and Luffy's flames created an explosion of energy, enveloping them in a temporary sphere of even more chaos. When the created field dissipated, Luffy, still in Ifrit form, hovered in the air, while Jinbai was visibly exhausted and began to fall towards the water again. He began to realize that he couldn't fight this pirate. Unlike the fight with Ace, it wouldn't be 3 days of battle but only a few minutes before he lost completely. His only advantage was to reach the sea, but this pirate seemed to know that. Luffy, agile as always, dove to reach him, and using his enhanced speed, he reached Jinbai in his openings, preventing him from touching the water surface. Jinbai, though tired and injured, didn't want to give up, even though his body already had many bruises and burns. He looked at Luffy approaching, preparing for the next clash. The evaporated water still hung in the air, creating a surreal backdrop for the aerial battle as the fight resumed. Luffy, anticipating Jinbai's movements, surged forward with extraordinary speed. His punches, enveloped in flames, sliced through the air toward the 7 warlords of the seas. Jinbai defended himself skillfully, using martial arts techniques and agile dodges to avoid the burning blows. The sound of the clash of attacks echoed through the skies, creating a combat symphony. Luffy, with his enhanced agility, managed to dodge Jinbai's attacks and counterattack with ruthless ferocity. The 7 warlords of the seas, in turn, unleashed powerful water movements, sending jets of water toward Luffy. At a crucial moment, Jinbai channeled his energy and launched a powerful water attack. The impact created a curtain of water that temporarily obscured the view. However, Luffy was not deterred. He emerged from the waves, Ifrit's flames shimmering with renewed intensity. With Luffy and Jinbai continuing to exchange accelerated blows in the sky, the air was impregnated with the sound of punches, kicks, and the crackling of flames. With a swift movement, Luffy evaded a punch from Jinbai and counterattacked with a powerful upward kick. The blow connected with the 7 warlords of the seas' jaw, and a shockwave ran through Jinbai's body. The fishman was momentarily suspended in the air, unable to act, his eyes showing surprise and resistance to imminent defeat. Luffy, seizing the opportunity, concentrated a significant amount of amethyst flames in his right fist. In a fluid motion, he unleashed a punch charged with energy and fired directly into Jinbai's belly. The impact was overwhelming. Flames exploded around Jinbai, enveloping his body in a momentary amethyst glow. The combined force of the punch and the flames propelled him downward, toward the ship's deck. The 7 warlords of the seas collided forcefully, creating a crack in the wooden deck. Silence followed the crash as everyone watched, surprised, the outcome of the battle. Luffy, still floating in the air, maintained his fighting stance, looking down with intensity. The face of the Straw Hats captain showed a bit of fatigue but also unwavering determination. The victory was his at that moment. The deck fell silent for a moment before the crew began to move. Some ran towards Jinbai to check his condition, while others approached Luffy to express their relief and happiness for the victory. Chapter 132, Alabasta 01. Jinbai-sama. Shirahoshi looked at Jinbai with concern. Hey. Ecchi also expressed concern. Luffy was on the other side with some bruises, but nothing serious. He used the regeneration of his zone to heal completely, spending a bit of energy. Wow, that was a really good fight. Who would have thought the first 7 warlords of the seas I would defeat would be Jinbai, of all 7 warlords of the seas? Luffy laughed, displaying his pride in the victory. Luffy. What should we do with him? Nojiko asked about the injured and lying fishman on the deck. Tie up his body. I'll throw him in the prison and talk to him when he wakes up, he said, and Hugo began to grab some thick chains to securely wrap Jinbai's body. As Hugo worked, Luffy remained thoughtful, looking at the horizon. Shirahoshi, still concerned, approached Luffy. Luffy-sama, can we really trust him after what happened? Luffy looked at Shirahoshi with a confident smile. Of course, we can. Jinbai is strong and has his own code of honor. Let's give him a chance. Besides, we're not here to make unnecessary enemies. Who knows, he might even become an ally. Nojiko nodded, agreeing with Luffy's approach. Meanwhile, Hugo finished tying the chains around Jinbai, ensuring there was no chance of escape. Ready, Captain. Jinbai is properly tied up. Hugo reported, and Luffy nodded. What a great fight. Dory couldn't help but praise Luffy's performance. Yes, Dory is right. Broggy confirmed. Well, thank you. Anyway, let's continue with our usual training. We'll reach Alabasta in the next few days. Luffy announced, showing his usual casualness even after the intense battle. He took Jinbai by the chains and began to drag him personally to the ship's prison. The crew watched, some still recovering from the surprise of the fight, while others were already eager for their own battles. Nojiko, watching the scene, asked Luffy. Captain, what do we do now? Will we continue on course to Alabasta? Luffy nodded. Yes, let's go to Alabasta. But first, I'll talk to Jinbai when he wakes up. We need to understand what he was doing here and if we can trust him as an ally. As the crew continued on its course towards Alabasta, Luffy took Jinbai to the prison, where he would stay until he recovered and was ready for a conversation. Monkey-chan. Luffy was greeted by Bon Clay with all his characteristic joy. Hello, Bon Clay. How are things? Luffy greeted friendly, observing the extravagant man in pink attire. Everything's fine now, Monkey-chan. But it was really cold before. That green-haired man wouldn't tell me why the weather was so bad when I asked him. So grumpy. The man spun in a ballet-like movement inside his cell while sharing his experiences. Well, that's typical of him. Luffy murmured with a smile, remembering Zoro and his more serious attitudes. Monkey-chan. What were those explosions until now? Who was this? Bon Clay, for the first time, noticed Jinbai being dragged by chains behind Luffy. That's Jinbai. One of the 7 warlords of the seas. Mr. 3 shouted alarmed. What? Some of the other agents exclaimed too, surprised by Jinbai's presence in the prison. I accidentally caught this fish. Luffy shrugged as he continued dragging Jinbai down the corridor. He says he caught it. Everyone in their cells internally mocked this, not believing this absurdity. Luffy reached an empty cell and threw Jinbai in there, tied up in a similar way as he was in impel down. Hey, handsome, don't you want to leave this lovely woman rotting in this cell, do you? Makita suddenly spoke, running her hand over her body, trying to seduce Luffy as he was leaving. Sorry, but I already have too many women, I have a limit to how many I can accept. Luffy shrugged. As attractive as Makita was, he didn't want to get involved with every woman he met. With over a dozen women to pay attention to, Luffy preferred to hold back. He had no plans to include Makita in his bed. Makita was stunned by the response, while Miss Merry Christmas laughed at the blonde. You see, Miss Valentina? If he were older, he would be my type, and then I would show you how to seduce someone. Almost everyone in the room vomited at that moment, including Luffy, who stumbled with the reaction and quickly left the room. Over the next 3 days, the crew alternated between moments of leisure and training. Bippo took care of navigation, and finally, Alabasta began to materialize on the horizon. Destiny awaited, bringing with it challenges and mysteries that piqued the curiosity of Luffy and his crew. Crew was the first to appear on the bow, waving his wings towards the homeland. Sharky. Grr. Woof woof. The animals joined crew to play, enjoying the proximity of the land in the distance. The fun of the 4 mascots was evident, creating a lively atmosphere on the deck. Is this your country, Vivi-sama? Shirahoshi asked, observing Alabasta with curiosity. Yes, this land is Alabasta. Vivi responded with a certain pride in her voice. What will be our first stop? Usopp asked excitedly next to Chopper. Irumalu, a port city in the south of the country. Bippo replied, sharing information about the destination. Well, let's move forward. Get ready to disembark at the city port. Put Jinbai on the deck tied to the mast as well. Ordered Luffy, and everyone went to their duties. Some time later, Luffy went to the ship's mast after Hugo and Zoro placed Jinbai there. I see you've awakened. Luffy addressed Jinbai, who still showed signs of injuries. Jinbai remained silent, his serious expression revealing little about his thoughts. Don't you want to join my crew? Luffy asked with a smile, suggesting something unusual. In the next moment, everyone fell to the floor, surprised by Luffy's audacity in inviting 7 warlords of the seas to be his subordinate. What kind of question is that? Do you think I'm going to join your crew? Ha 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 ha. Don't be so serious. Luffy laughed at Jinbai's indignant reaction. Seeing the serious look still present on Jinbai's face, Luffy sighed, maintaining a calmer expression. If you still think I did something to manipulate those 2 members of your race and force them to join my crew, you're mistaken. You can talk to them if you want. Luffy shrugged, expressing sincerity in his words. Then tell me how the mermaid princess disappeared from King Neptune's eyes on any given day and ended up in the East Blue with reduced size? Jinbai questioned, demanding an explanation. Well, that's a secret. I admit that I managed to summon her on Fishman Island, but at the same time, I freed her from her confinement, and she thanked me for it. Luffy said and continued, maintaining an air of mystery around the incident. Anyway, I'll see what we'll do with you after I find Ace. I know he's in this country. Who is Ace? Lamy raised the question, listening to the conversation with curiosity. My brother. I'm sure he's in this city. Luffy smiled, directing his gaze to the approaching city. The pirate ship approaching the country, especially heading towards Irumalu, caught the attention of its inhabitants, who watched with curiosity and, in some cases, fear, the arrival of the Straw Hats. A pirate ship. It's the Straw Hats. The group with a total bounty of 470 million. This is terrible. Notify Captain Smoker, the Straw Hats are coming to the city. Meanwhile, the Black Pearl quickly headed for the port, anchoring under the scared gaze of the people. A large group of crew members, including some animals, began to disembark. A moment later, the ship disappeared in front of all the curious onlookers, while Luffy held the Black Pearl before stashing it in one of his pockets. Hey, Jinbai, how did you get so small? Luffy commented while looking at the miniature ship on the deck. "Na." Luffy heard Jinbai's tiny voice shouting from the ship with a comical face. Leaving Jinbai aside, Luffy turned his attention to all members of his crew. You can do whatever you want during this day. It's a day off, so feel free to explore the city. Luffy announced, earning some grateful looks and even some tears from some, finally getting away from the infernal training imposed by Luffy. The swordsman Zoro, Kuina, along with Bragi and Dory, formed a group, exploring weapon shops and training together in an open area. Vivi, crew, Shirahoshi, and Megalo decided to visit local tourist spots. Vivi wanted to show some points to the enthusiastic Shirahoshi about the history of Alabasta. Usopp and Chopper were together, exploring the shops that this desert country could offer. Reiju and Ecchi were busy looking for fresh ingredients and exotic spices to prepare a special meal and snacks for the entire crew. Hugo went alone just to stroll. Bippo and Chaochu joined forces to explore the commercial areas of the city, with Chaochu interacting with other local dogs and animals. Nojiko, Alvida, and Robin decided to visit a local tea shop, seeking to relax a bit, and Lami joined them later. Meanwhile, in a corner of the city, a man walked carelessly, a miniature whale floating in the air beside him. Luffy and Laboon explored the bustling streets of Alabasta. The captain of the Straw Hats couldn't help but observe the liveliness of the city. People wore light and colorful clothes, reflecting the constant heat of the desert. Loose-fitting tunics and garments were common, providing defense against the scorching sun. "Let's go, Laboon, we have to find someone." Luffy spoke as he walked ahead. "Grr." Laboon made his iconic sound, but Luffy understood it as confirmation that Laboon wanted to accompany him, and who would Luffy be to deny his friend's request? People looked astonished at what they were seeing, even some recognized that Luffy was a pirate with a bounty of 200 million, but the sight of Laboon floating beside him was too surreal. "There are many looks on us, and I know this city is full of Baroque Works agents. I hope Robin keeps an eye on the princesses as I assigned her." Luffy murmured to himself while looking at some malicious glances in the crowd. "Laboon, I'm looking for a restaurant, let me know if you find any." Luffy commented. "Grr? Never mind." Luffy forgot he was talking to a whale that never left the entrance of the Grand Line. Found it. Luffy finally spotted the restaurant he was looking for. His eyes lit up even more when he noticed the presence of a man in the marine cloak at the establishment's entrance. Smoker. So he's here too. Luffy laughed, excited about the imminent encounter. He turned to Laboon, who floated beside him. "Laboon, I'll go ahead. You catch up later at that restaurant, got it?" Luffy spoke, not waiting for a response, and dashed away. Luffy ran at a superhuman speed, with his clear intention of catching up with the marine officer. The people around were surprised by the captain of the Straw Hats' speed and agility, and the wind followed him as he passed by everyone, while Laboon floated calmly, watching the scene. Meanwhile, in the bar, the atmosphere was far from ordinary. The marine officer stared at the pirate at the counter with narrowed eyes, and everyone in the bar could feel the escalating tension in the atmosphere. "Commander of the 2nd Division of the Whitebeard Pirates." Smoker spoke calmly to the pirate, staring at him from the counter with a smile. "That's me." Ace replied with some amusement. "I'll have to arrest you here." Smoker spoke as his arm began to transform into smoke. "You can try." Ace began to materialize flames on his body. "Smoke here." Suddenly, a voice echoed from outside, and before Smoker could react, his spine bent with the kick he was receiving from Luffy. The captain of the Straw Hats came at full speed, managing to materialize a small tip of hockey on his foot to hit the logia. This was hockey's progress, still small, but Luffy was satisfied with the advancement achieved in just a week of training. Smoker was stunned by the sudden pain, while his body was propelled forward, and Ace had his eyes almost popping out of their sockets witnessing the unexpected event. Before either of them could react, both were thrown into the wall, with Luffy calmly remaining inside the restaurant. Crack. The sound of walls breaking under the impact of Smoker and Ace echoed repeatedly. "That was a nice mess." "Ha ha 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 ha," Luffy commented, laughing, while everyone in the restaurant kept their jaws dropped and eyes wide at a surprising display of strength. The captain of the Straw Hats seemed completely at ease, as if throwing two powerful opponents through walls was just another ordinary day in his life. Chapter 133, Alabasta 02. Luffy's thunderous laughter echoed through the bar, filling the space with vibrant and uninhibited energy. He stood, an arrogant smile adorning his face, while the bar patrons looked on, open-mouthed and in absolute shock. The impact of his arrival still reverberated through the walls, and everyone's eyes were fixed on the hole. "Ha ha ha ha. I wanted to see your face, Smoker," Luffy proclaimed, his chest swelling with pride for the feat accomplished. The civilians in the bar, some still with their drinks halfway to their lips, remained motionless as if time had frozen. It was a scene that defied comprehension. The infamous pirate of 200 million Baileys not only challenged, but also struck a navy captain, but a commander of the Whitebeard Pirates. "Hey bartender, don't just stand there. Bring me food," Luffy announced, fiddling with his hat. "Also, bring me a lot of food, my 400-meter whale is coming." "Ha ha ha ha." Luffy laughed as everyone became even more stunned, wondering if this was a joke. Luffy was served and began to eat with the waiter frowning at him. Laboon arrived at that moment, floating gracefully in the air with a bubble ring surrounding his waist, as if it were an aquatic display in the sky. The unanimous exclamation "It's really a whale" echoed through the space, with the customers and bar staff glued to the windows and doors, all wanting to witness the spectacle. "Come Laboon, come eat," Luffy invited, waving to his marine friend with a piece of meat in hand. Laboon responded with a deep and joyful sound, grr, which vibrated through the walls of the establishment. As Luffy enjoyed his meal with contagious enthusiasm, the waiter approached him, his expression laden with caution and evident concern. Moving hesitantly, he said, "Hey, you should leave." Luffy, surprised, looked up, pausing his relentless gastronomic adventure for a moment. "What's up?" he asked, an expression of innocent curiosity on his face. The waiter, swallowing hard, pointed to a considerable hole in the bar's wall. "See that hole in the wall?" Looking in the direction indicated, Luffy replied with a playful smile, "Yes, is that like an emergency exit from the bar?" The bar's response was swift. "Of course not." "You did that?" echoed a chorus of voices, with the bar patrons expressing both fear and disbelief. Luffy, keeping the smile, feigned surprise. "Me? I don't think so." "Of course it was." The bar shouted in unison, tension rising as the reality of the situation set in. The waiter, clearly concerned about the possible consequences of Luffy's action, tried to argue again. "You sent a Navy officer and a member of the Whitebeard pirates flying, you have to get out of here if you want to live." Luffy, unfazed, looked at Laboon, who floated peacefully by his side, and calmly replied, "I see. But it's okay, I can handle it. And we haven't finished eating yet, have we Laboon?" "Grr." Laboon made a deep sound, seeming to agree with his friend. The waiter, realizing the futility of trying to persuade the pirate, sighed, accepting that there wasn't much he could do. The other customers watched the scene, a mix of fascination and apprehension in the air, while they wondered what else this unexpected and extraordinary day would bring. Grr. At that moment, Ace emerged from the wreckage, clearly furious, looking for the one responsible for his current situation. Smoker, following closely, maintained his stern expression and the imposing posture of a Navy officer determined on his mission. As he emerged from the hole in the wall, Ace could hardly believe what he saw. There was Luffy, sitting calmly at the bar, enjoying his meal as if nothing extraordinary had happened. "Lu," began Ace, his voice laden with surprise and irritation. "Mugiwara." However, before he could complete his thought, Smoker quickly acted, pushing Ace back to the ground with Smoker's hand as he advanced towards Luffy. Luffy, watching the scene with a relaxed smile, greeted Smoker undisturbed. "Hey Smoker, how are you? Did you like my kick?" he asked, the casualness of his voice contrasting sharply with the tension in the air. "So it was you? I came to arrest you." Smoker growled, anger clear in his voice, as he fixed his gaze on Luffy. Luffy, still nibbling on a piece of meat, looked at his brother still on the ground and said to Smoker, "It was, but can you first get off my brother?" Smoker, with a momentarily surprised expression, looked at Ace, who was on the ground. "Brother?" he questioned, his voice tinged with incredulity as he connected the dots. For some reason, perhaps a reluctant recognition of the fraternal bond between the two pirates, Smoker stepped aside, allowing Ace to rise. With a swift movement, Ace got up, fixing his gaze on Luffy. "Luffy!" he shouted, a mix of relief and exasperation in his voice. "Ace!" Luffy responded with a genuine and warm smile. "Luffy!" Ace called again, a smile forming on his face too. "Ace!" Luffy echoed, his voice full of joy. The two brothers continued, repeating each other's names, until Smoker, clearly impatient with the scene, interrupted. "Are you just going to keep saying that?" he growled, his voice raised in frustration. The brothers' response was a shared laugh. "Ha ha 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 ha." Followed by ha 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 ha, their laughter mingling in the charged air of the bar. Laboon, watching the scene, emitted a confused grr, not fully understanding what was happening. Luffy, still smiling, called the waiter. "Hey, waiter, a table for 4, please." A moment later, a table was arranged in the middle of the restaurant, accommodating Luffy, Laboon, Ace, and a still reluctant Smoker. "Why am I here? I should be arresting you." Smoker growled, his expression still stern. "Relax, Navy Captain, you don't want to start a fight in the middle of a bar, do you?" Luffy joked, giving Smoker a friendly elbow nudge. "TSK." Smoker grunted, clearly displeased with the situation, but without many options. Ace, looking at Luffy, commented, "Luffy, you look so different." His voice carried the mix of surprise and admiration, observing the changes in his younger brother. The scene was surreal, two notorious pirates, a Navy captain, and a flying whale, all sitting at the same table, creating a unique atmosphere that defied the reality of the One Piece world. Ha ha ha. I ate a zone, it changed my body a bit. Luffy explained, smiling as he ran his hand through his hair, subtly highlighting the changes in his appearance. Ace, with a look of curiosity and admiration, asked, so now you are a devil fruit user too? Is it true that you met Lucy? How is she? Luffy, with a nostalgic glint in his eyes, replied, she's fine, we spent a week together with my crew. But, you know, there was that fight in Logtown and we had to say goodbye. That's amazing. I wish I had met her too. It's been so many years. Ace commented, a melancholic smile forming on his lips. Ha 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 ha. You would laugh with her, she never changes. Luffy said, and both brothers shared a moment of genuine laughter. Meanwhile, the people in the bar watched the scene with a mix of incredulity and fascination. The sight of two infamous pirates, a navy captain, and a flying whale sharing the same table was something that defied reality. Whispers and astonished looks traveled through the room. The waiter, still with an expression of incredulity, brought more food, his trays laden with an absurd amount of dishes to satisfy the voracious appetites of the pirates and the whale. Each time he approached the table, his eyes widened a bit more, not believing the scene before him. It's not every day that a navy captain dines with pirates. And a whale, on top of that. The waiter murmured to himself, as he placed the dishes on the table. The tension remained high around the table, with Smoker sitting stiff and uncomfortable, the veins in his forehead pulsing with contained irritation. The casualness with which Luffy treated the situation irritated him more than he would like to admit. Don't make me laugh, Mugiwara. You're going to be arrested here. Smoker said, his voice laden with cold anger, as he stared at the pirate in front of him. Luffy just smiled, enjoying his meal with an enthusiasm that only he possessed. Relax, Smoker. It's just a meal. You should try to enjoy it, he suggested, ignoring the other's hostility. Ace, for his part, tried to lighten the mood, but it was evident that he also enjoyed Smoker's discomfort. You know, it's impressive how you managed to stay calm with him provoking you like that, he commented, a laugh escaping between his words. Grr. Laboon vocalized from time to time, seemingly understanding the peculiar nature of the gathering. Smoker just grunted in response, his hands clenched into fists under the table. I'm not here to enjoy. I'm here because I have a job to do and you two are part of it. Don't forget, Luffy, that you're on a very short list of people I'd like to see behind bars. Hey, waiter, bring another round. It'll help our friend Smoker here relax. Luffy called, waving to the waiter without paying any attention to the implicit threat in Smoker's words. The people in the bar continued to watch, waiting for any sign of an imminent fight. However, it was hard to believe that amid such bizarre camaraderie, something so violent could occur. The presence of the whale, in particular, seemed to confer an air of surrealism to the moment that disarmed the expectation of a confrontation. Smoker, realizing the gazes upon him, knew he could not let the situation escalate there. Just remember, Luffy, that your time is running out. And when it does, I'll be there to make sure you pay for everything you've done. Luffy just nodded, his attention apparently more focused on the plate in front of him than on Smoker's warnings. As you wish, Smoker. But for now, let's enjoy the food, right? As the meal continued, the bar began to resume a buzz of normality, even with the imposing presence of Smoker, Luffy, Ace, and the whale Laboon among them. Luffy and Ace, enjoying the food and each other's company, laughed and chatted as if they had forgotten the world around them. The waiter, now a little more relaxed, served another round of drinks, while observing the unusual dynamics of the brothers and the navy captain. The entire place was enveloped in the contagious energy of the pirates, until a sudden silence fell over the table. Smoker's patience finally ran out. With a swift movement, he punched the table forcefully. Crack. Enough. I'm arresting you two, he shouted, his voice echoing through the bar. A customer, observing the scene in surprise, intervened. Navy officer. They're sleeping. It was true. Both Luffy and Ace, amid conversation and laughter, had succumbed to sleep, their heads resting on the destroyed table. Laboon, confused by the sudden change, emitted an interrogative grr? How can you sleep here? Smoker, completely losing his composure, broke what remained of the table with his two hands. At that moment, Ace began to wake up, sleepy and confused by the noise. What's all of this noise? Can't you see people are sleeping here? He asked, rubbing his eyes. Luffy, still half asleep, murmured, I think I slept a bit. He looked at the destroyed table, slowly processing the situation. It was a good meal, but I think we have to go now. Let's go, Ace. With a fluid movement, he grabbed a gold bar and threw it on the counter. Waiter, this covers your costs, Luffy said, grabbing Laboon by the arm and pulling Ace by the other. Goodbye, Smoker. Luffy laughed, his voice full of amusement, as he left through the door. I won't let you escape. Smoker, transformed into smoke, rushed after Luffy, determined not to lose sight of the pirates. As Luffy left with Ace and Laboon, leaving the bar and fleeing from the Navy officer, the customers were stunned, witnessing an ending as sudden and chaotic as the meeting itself. The bar, now silent, was filled with incredulous looks and whispers about the surreal scene they had just witnessed. Chapter 134, Alabasta 03. Luffy, Ace, and Laboon were moving swiftly through the streets of Alabasta, with palpable energy and urgency. The sun beat down hard on the cobblestone streets, creating a mosaic of light and shadow as they dodged the crowd. "Hey, Luffy!" Ace exclaimed, trying to keep up with his younger brother's fast pace. "Come on, Ace. Come with me." Luffy replied, his voice full of determination. He led the way, with Ace and Laboon close behind. "And that sailor?" Ace asked, looking over his shoulder to check if Smoker was still following them. "I'll handle him." "Let's go," Luffy said, a tone of confidence in his voice. They deftly dodged through the crowd, turning into a narrow and shadowy alley of the city. Smoker, transformed into smoke, followed them closely, floating in the air. As soon as they found a more isolated place, Luffy stopped running, turning to face his pursuer. Smoker descended, wrapped in his smoke powers, his face a mix of determination and frustration. "You're under arrest, Monkey D. Luffy and Portgas D. Ace," he declared, surrounding himself with an aura of authority. But before Smoker could react, or even Ace formulate a response, Luffy used instant transmission, a technique that allowed him to move at incredible speed. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Smoker, his fist ready to strike. Luffy's blow was almost entirely avoided by Smoker's Logia nature, but a small bright point of Haki made contact, sending Smoker flying backward with increased force, crashing him against a wall. "What?" Smoker exclaimed, surprised and dazed by the unexpected impact. "Luffy, you knocked down a Logia. You learned Haki?" Ace asked, his eyes wide in shock and admiration. Luffy, breathing heavily after the attack, looked at Ace and replied, "I'm learning. I still have a long way to master the technique." "Damn." Smoker stood up with a black eye from Luffy's punch. "Sorry, Smoker, but our fight ends here." Luffy appeared in front of him, but Smoker managed to dodge by flying with his body in smoke. "You are good at running away, but not good enough." Luffy's voice was heard again and he appeared beside Smoker delivering another punch to the man. Now the Navy man had nothing to do but fall knocked out. "I think we're done here, let's go, Ace," Luffy said, leaving the alley with Ace following him with a strange face and Laboon behind. "Luffy, you always behaved so carelessly," Ace murmured, passing by the fainted Navy man. Luffy, Ace, and Laboon continued their way through the streets of Alabasta, leaving behind the scene of the confrontation with Smoker. The sun still shone strongly over the city, creating contrasts of light and shadow that danced through the alleys and avenues. Luffy guided Ace and Laboon through back streets and less crowded alleys, moving away from the hustle and bustle of the main city. Ace's expression reflected a mix of surprise and admiration, still absorbing the recent events and his brother's prowess. "Hey, don't be so surprised, let's talk somewhere," Luffy said with a calm smile, indicating he knew exactly where they were going. Ace, driven by curiosity and eagerness to know more, followed Luffy. "Alright, I have to ask about Yamato. How did you manage to get her out of Wano?" Ace's question was laden with admiration and interest. Luffy chose a small park in the city for their conversation. It was a calm place, filled with green areas and benches under leafy trees, offering a quiet refuge from urban chaos. The park was almost deserted, with just a few people walking or resting in the shade, enjoying the peace of the late afternoon. "Well, about Yamato," Luffy began, sitting down on the soft grass. He looked at Ace, his eyes shining with excitement. "It was crazy, you know. I used an artifact to summon some people from different parts of the world and managed to free her from her father's chains with it. She must be really happy about that. Is she in the city now?" Ace asked, the interest evident in his voice. Luffy shook his head. "She's in the capital of this country now, protecting the king. We'll meet up with her soon." The conversation flowed naturally as Luffy began to recount all the adventures he had experienced since leaving Fusha. The narrative was full of action, dangers, and twists, with Luffy describing each detail with contagious excitement. "I still can't believe you killed Starry. And he is Sabo's brother?" Ace expressed his surprise, clearly stunned by the revelation. A trace of anger appeared on his face, a reaction to the fact that Luffy had not yet told him that Sabo was alive. Laboon, lying nearby, calmly observed the interaction, seeming content to be in the company of the two brothers. "And you, stop talking about me, brother. Did you join the crew of the strongest man in the world?" Luffy asked with an intriguing smile. Ace, puffing up his chest with pride, replied. "That's right, I met Pops a few years ago and became the commander of the 2nd Division of the Whitebeard Pirates. He began to recount his story, his voice full of enthusiasm as he reminisced about how he joined the crew, how he was accepted, and how he ended up accepting all the others as well. I'm glad you seem to be enjoying it, but your crew is only at the top for a moment. Luffy teased, a mischievous glint in his eyes. Ace, gladly accepting the provocation, responded. Pops won't fall so easily, Luffy, no matter how strong you are. We'll see about that in the future. Luffy said. And speaking of one crew surpassing another, why don't we fight like in the old days? Let's see who's stronger now. Luffy's smile was a clear invitation to the challenge. I'm fine with that, come at me whenever you want. Ace laughed, accepting his brother's challenge. Luffy stood up, ready for action. Let's go outside the city, we don't want to destroy the city with our flames. He began walking toward the park's exit. GRR. Laboon, sensing the change in energy, also stood up to follow. Ace, excited by the prospect of the fight, said, I want to see if your flames are more powerful than mine. And followed Luffy. Together, they headed for the desert surrounding the city, a place where they could unleash their full power without concerns. The sun was in the middle of the afternoon, lighting the world with its intense color, a perfect backdrop for the clash between brothers in the Alabasta Desert. It was a return to old times, with a new dynamic, no longer as a fight between brothers on Dawn Island, but now as powerful pirates in their own rights. In the midst of the Alabasta Desert, apart from Laboon a little distance away, no one would witness the epic confrontation between Luffy and Ace. Luffy, wielding the power of his mythical zone fruit, was prepared to show the extent of his newly acquired abilities. He began by activating his Chaos Flames, a spectacle of vibrant purple flames that enveloped his fists. These flames, defying common understanding, emitted intense heat and energy that distorted the air around them. Ace, though impressed, reacted with his own red flames, ready for the clash. The first exchange between the two was a test of strength and skill. Luffy, concentrating the power of his purple flames, launched them towards Ace, creating a spectacular explosion that lit up the desert. Ace, with innate skill, used his flames to create a shield, defending himself from the attack and redirecting the energy. Luffy then advanced for hand-to-hand combat. His purple flames intensified the potency of his strikes, making each attack a devastating threat. Ace agilely dodged some attacks, others his body turned into flames to become intangible, responding with counterattacks wrapped in his flames, while the flames of both intertwined in a fiery ballet pressing one another. Do I have the advantage that Akainu has on Ace? Luffy hoped so, but it seems he was mistaken. Luffy, determined to elevate the combat, activated the first phase of his transformation. His hair grew like a mane, 2-meter black wings emerged from his back, providing him incredible mobility. His purple flames became more intense. Ace watched, admiring, as Luffy demonstrated enhanced control over the flames, combining physical strength with pyrotechnic skills. The battle between the brothers transformed into an impressive spectacle soon after that, with Luffy displaying his immense strength and Ace responding with equal dexterity and power, creating waves of fire, the noise of flames running throughout the desert. At the climax of the clash, Luffy unleashed the second phase of his transformation. Ace, now facing a transformed and even more powerful Luffy, prepared for a response to match. The desert became the stage for a duel between flames and will. The clash between Luffy's purple flames and Ace's red flames created an impressive visual phenomenon, visible even from the distant city. The explosions resulting from the collision of their powers seemed to paint a sky with vibrant colors, a mix of purple and red that danced in the air. Luffy, propelled by his black wings, lunged towards Ace, his purple flames intensifying with each movement. He executed a series of quick and powerful attacks, each punch charged with the energy of chaos flames. Ace, no less impressive, responded with his own arsenal of red flames. He moved with the grace and agility of a dancer, his flames forming fire dragons that lunged at Luffy. Each collision resulted in a new explosion that lit up the sky even with the sun present, sending shockwaves through the desert. The sand around them rose in clouds, forming a spectacle of light and shadow. The heat was so intense it could be felt even from a distance. In the city, the inhabitants stopped to observe the phenomenon in the sky. What appeared to be a firestorm over the desert captured everyone's attention, leaving them awestruck and apprehensive. Children pointed to the horizon, while adults murmured about what was happening, as it seemed a battle was occurring. Laboon, keeping a safe distance, looked at the confrontation with a mix of anxiety and fascination. Luffy and Ace continued their battle, each seeking to surpass the other, not only in strength but also in spirit. Ha 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 ha. Ace, this is even better than what we used to do. Luffy laughed in his transformation. Luffy, you really have become powerful, this is on a level above when I fought against Jinbai. He admitted. Wait until he sees the captive I have in my ship, ha ha ha. Luffy thought. Let's increase the power of our flames, Ace. Luffy announced. Alright then. Ace agreed. In the Alabasta Desert, the battle between Luffy and Ace continued with increasing intensity. Luffy's purple flames, growing more powerful, began to gain an advantage over Ace's red flames. Luffy, fueled by the strength of his mythical zone, demonstrated control over fire that seemed to defy the very laws of nature, as if all domain of fire belonged to Ifrit and only him. Luffy advanced, his black wings beating powerfully, raising whirlwinds of sand as he moved. He executed a series of rapid strikes, his purple flames enveloping his fists, each attack stronger than the previous. Ace, with his red flames, bravely defended himself, but the pressure from Luffy was relentless, his body colliding with the area before materializing again. In a stunning move, Luffy launched a massive sphere of purple flames, an attack that once again lit up the entire place with a shockwave that even made the city tremble. Boom. Ace, reacting quickly, launched himself into the air, but the destructive power destabilized his position. Luffy, seizing the opportunity, activated his haki, concentrating it in his fist. He lunged towards Ace, closing the distance between them in the blink of an eye. Ace, surprised by Luffy's speed, barely had time to react. Luffy's fist, enveloped in an aura of haki, struck Ace squarely, sending him flying back to the desert ground again. The force of the blow created a crater in the sand, raising a cloud of dust and sand. Ace, fallen, tried to get up, but the impact of Luffy's blow had been too much. He looked up, seeing Luffy standing before him, purple flames still dancing around his body. You've improved a lot, Luffy. Even surpassed me. Ace murmured, but he had a proud smile on his lips. Luffy extended his hand to help Ace up. You too, Ace. That was an incredible fight. The two brothers briefly embraced, a mutual acknowledgement of respect and admiration. Laboon, seeing that the fight had ended, approached, avoiding all the flames burning in the desert, emitting sounds that seemed to celebrate the end of the confrontation. Chapter 135, Alabasta 04. After facing Smoker and an intense battle in the desert, Luffy, Ace, and Laboon were walking through the streets of Alabasta heading towards a meeting with the rest of the crew. The streets were restless, people looked around with worried expressions, still frightened by the explosions and the uproar caused by the brothers' clash. I think we overdid it a bit, Luffy. We're no longer those kids trying to punch each other on top of the mountain, right? Our fights have many consequences now. Ace said, looking at his brother with a half-smile. Luffy laughed, shaking his head. Maybe we did, but everyone will calm down soon, it's been a while since the explosions stopped. His voice was light, but he cast a sympathetic glance at the agitated people around, still wanting to know what was happening in that rain of flames. Ace changed the subject, his curiosity evident in his gaze. Hey, Luffy, you still haven't told me about Laboon. How did you recruit a whale that floats in the air like a mermaid, and is that its real size? He gestured towards the whale, which floated peacefully next to them. Luffy looked at Laboon fondly. Ah, that was quite an adventure. When I met it, it was blocking the way of my ship, so I beat it up, and after defeating it, I won it over and used one of my special tricks. But look how happy it is now. Grr. Laboon emitted a soft sound, as if agreeing with Luffy. Besides finally having a flock with her, she was expectant about meeting one of her old friends. Maybe you've seen it before, Ace. Do you remember that giant whale that was at the entrance of the Grand Line? I found Laboon blocking the way there. Luffy explained, giving a friendly pat on Laboon's head. What? You mean Laboon is that giant whale that kept bashing against the rocks? Ace asked, his eyes wide with surprise and disbelief. Wait, you fought against it? It must have been about 400 meters. Exactly, that same one. Now it's one of us. Luffy replied with a proud smile. I managed to shrink its size, it was one of my tricks. Incredible. Ace murmured, looking at Laboon with newfound admiration. Only you, Luffy, could do something like that. He smiled, impressed with his brother's ability to make the impossible possible. Both arrived at the place Luffy had arranged to meet his crew. Luffy. Kuina's voice rang through the air as she approached, followed closely by Zoro, Broggy, and Dory. You finally arrived. Luffy greeted with a wave, a broad smile on his face. We were training when the explosions started echoing through the city. Who were you fighting to have all those purple and red flames beside the city? Kuina asked, crossing her arms, an eyebrow raised. Ah, that was between me and my brother here. He's a user of the Flame Fruit model, Fire Human Devil Fruit, the Fire Logia. Luffy replied proudly, pointing to Ace. The fight was good, but as expected, I won, of course. Luffy laughed, slapping Ace on the back. You bastard. Ace murmured, but he was smiling despite Luffy's victory. Hello everyone. He greeted the first to arrive. Looks like it was a spectacular fight, wasn't it, Broggy? Dory intervened, looking at the two brothers. Yes, Dory. Broggy responded enthusiastically. So you're the captain's brother? Zoro looked at Ace with interest. Soon, the other crew members began to arrive, one by one, each expressing their surprise and relief to see that, despite the explosions and the fight, everything was fine and Luffy hadn't damaged the city. Besides the explosions and the fight between you two, it seems everything went well. Nojiko commented. So this is your brother, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi asked, her eyes shining with curiosity and admiration. And you are my brother's crew, I hope he doesn't cause too much trouble. Ace commented with a smile and then turned to Luffy. Hey, Luffy, you still haven't explained why you're with the mermaid princess. Pops wants to know why you captured her and how she ended up in your hands in the East Blue. Ace said, pointing discreetly to Shirahoshi, who was a bit curious about him. Luffy laughed softly, shaking his head. It's a long story, Ace, I'll tell you another time. Right now, we need to focus on following the plan. We need to get to Rain Base to deal with Crocodile. He said with a determined look. But Luffy, crossing the entire desert won't be easy. Vivi intervened, clear concern in her voice. Luffy smiled confidently. Don't worry, Vivi. My ship is a bit different from the others. You'll see, the Black Pearl can even sail on the desert too. He announced, leading the group out of the city. Did Vivi and Shirahoshi have any trouble? Luffy went to Robin's side to ask if everything went well. Some agents tried to capture them, but I dealt with them all myself. She said with a small smile, and Luffy nodded, satisfied. As they walked, Robin, always observant, spoke again, but we have some members of the Baroque Orcs following us at the moment. Luffy stopped and turned to Hugo, one of the strongest members of his crew. Hugo, can you take care of them? He asked. Hugo, with a serious expression, nodded. Leave it to me, Captain. Without hesitation, he moved away from the group, ready to confront the pursuers. Hugo, using his moonwalk ability, leaped through the air, displaying impressive agility. The group advanced towards the desert. The next moment, Luffy launched the Black Pearl, and the ship landed gently on the sand after returning to normal size, prepared for its unusual journey through the desert. Luffy, what kind of ability is that? I thought you had eaten a zone fruit. If you want to know, I'll explain it to you, Ace, but I'm a dual user of fruits. Luffy shrugged and boarded the ship along with the others, leaving Ace stunned. As soon as Ace boarded the ship, he couldn't help but be stunned again, as for the first time, he saw that Jinbai was on Luffy's ship, and the fishman was still tied to the mast of the ship, visibly beaten. Jinbai! Ace exclaimed, shocked at the sight of Jinbai in that condition and ran to him. Luffy looked at Jinbai and then at Ace, with a mischievous smile. Ah, I caught him while we were approaching Alabasta and am trying to recruit him for my crew. But he's stubborn and doesn't want to accept. He commented casually, leaving Ace even more perplexed. What do you mean trying to recruit him, Luffy? Release him right now. Ace demanded, his voice taking on a more serious tone. Luffy shook his head, firm in his decision. He invaded my ship and started a fight. No matter what you say, Ace, I'm not releasing him now. He's my prisoner, and I'm going to keep him like that until we leave Alabasta. Ace, frustrated and worried, looked at Luffy, trying to understand his brother's reasons. The rest of the crew watched the situation unfold, knowing Luffy had his reasons, but some like Shirahoshi and Ecchi were equally concerned about Jinbai's fate. Looking at you now, Ace, it reminds me of something too. Luffy suddenly smiled at Ace in a way the 2nd Division commander didn't like when Luffy disappeared from the spot and came to his brother's side without the latter being able to react. What are you doing? Ace looked at Luffy, incredulous, as the captain of the Straw Hats slipped the sea stone handcuffs onto his wrist. Luffy, what does this mean? He began, his voice mixing surprise and frustration. Jinbai, watching the scene unfold, was surprised to see Ace there being bound with him. Ace! He murmured, not exactly knowing how to react to that unexpected situation. Luffy, ignoring the protests, continued with his plan. Ace, you gave me a great idea for a photo. He said with a mischievous smile. Luffy, what are you doing? Ace demanded, his voice increasing in urgency as he felt the strength of his devil fruit being suppressed by the handcuffs and being pressed against the mast to join Jinbai. Ha 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 ha. It's for your own good, brother. You rely too much on your fruit. It's time to discover your own weaknesses. Luffy said, tying Ace next to Jinbai. The determination on his face showed that he was serious, despite his laughter. Chopper, with wide eyes, watched the scene. Luffy is so relentless. Not even his brother can escape him. He commented, unable to believe what he was seeing. Luffy. I swear I'm going to beat you as soon as I get out of here, I swear. Ace shouted, his indignation clear in every word. Luffy, however, just laughed, excitement shining in his eyes. Relax, brother. It's just for a photo. I'll send it to your pops. I want to challenge the strongest man in the world, and I'm going to do it by really provoking him. Ha 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 ha. His triumphant laughter echoed, while the other crew members watched, some laughing, others shocked, but all recognizing the unpredictable and daring nature of their captain. As Luffy prepared the Den Mushi, the group readied for a photo that would certainly go down in history, a portrait of brothers, with Luffy clearly pleased in his capture of the second commander of the Whitebeard pirates and Jinbai, a 7 warlords of the seas of the government. Damn Luffy. Ace grumbled, still struggling against the sea stone handcuffs. Beside him, Jinbai, equally restrained, shook his head. Is your brother always this eccentric? He asked, a mixed expression of disbelief and resignation on his face. Ace sighed. You should see our sister. Sometimes, she can be even worse. His words were powerless, but there was a trace of affection in his voice. Luffy, ignoring the murmurs, took a photo of Ace and Jinbai tied to the mast. With a broad smile, he took Ace's Den Mushi and sent the image directly to Whitebeard's main contact. Luffy was aware that the photo could enrage the legendary pirate, but this didn't seem to shake him in the slightest. Shortly after, Hugo returned, reporting that he had eliminated over 200 agents of the Baroque orcs who were pursuing them. With the threat neutralized, Luffy decided it was time for them to depart. Set the sails, we're heading for Rain Base, Luffy announced, and the Black Pearl began to move over the desert sand as if it were sailing on the sea waves. This is amazing, Captain! Exclaimed one of the Straw Hats, their eyes shining with admiration. Black Pearl is so cool! Commented another, watching the ship advance through the sand. Sailing in the desert? That's so cool! Usopp said, clearly impressed with the unique ability of the ship. And so, with the crew gathered and the spirit of adventure renewed, the Black Pearl moved forward, sailing through the Alabasta Desert towards Rain Base. Somewhere in the New World, the news about the fate of Ace and Jinbai reached the Whitebeard crew, creating a wave of shock and disbelief among the pirates. Poops, this is terrible! Exclaimed one of the commanders, running across the deck to where Marco and the others were gathered. Marco, with a look of concern, turned to the commander. What happened? He asked, sensing the urgency in his voice. Ace and Jinbai were captured by Monkey D. Luffy. The commander extended the Den Mushi, showing the photo to everyone. The image showed Ace and Jinbai tied to the mast of Luffy's ship, with Luffy himself standing between them, arms crossed and displaying an arrogant smile. A shocked silence took over the deck. No one could believe what they were seeing. The photo was bizarre, almost comical, but the gravity of the situation was evident in Jinbai's battered appearance. Marco frowned, concern evident on his face. This doesn't seem right. Ace always spoke well of his brother, and he even mentioned that sometimes Luffy was crazy, but this surpasses any expectation I've ever had of Ace's brother. He commented, thoughtfully. Other crew members murmured among themselves, trying to understand the possible reasons behind Luffy's actions. Whitebeard, who had been informed, approached, his gaze serious and thoughtful. This is a challenge, said Whitebeard, his deep voice resonating across the deck. Monkey D. Luffy is trying to provoke us. We need to find out what's really going on. I'm sure he won't do anything to his brother, so let's wait for Ace to contact us again. With that, everyone agreed with Poops. Ace had always said Monkey D. Luffy was unpredictable. Chapter 136, Alabasta 05. Luffy. Nojiko moaned as she straddled Luffy. You are very excited. Alvida moaned as Luffy played with her pussy with 2 hot fingers. Luffy was in his cabin with Nojiko and Alvida naked while having sex. Nojiko seemed excited by the speed she was bouncing on his dick. Luffy, you liked it? He moaned, releasing his liquid into Luffy. Now, it's my turn. Alvida pulled Nojiko off of Luffy as she lay down next to her captain to exchange kisses, while Alvida used her sliding power to make Luffy enter her with ease. It's always good to eat you, Alvida. Have I told you that I love your slippery power? Luffy spoke with a smile as he was inside the woman. Of course I do, my husband. She said, before starting to move, shaking the bed. 2 hours later, Luffy emerged from the cabin satisfied and headed to the deck of the ship, which sailed through the Alabasta Desert calmly while darkness painted the sky with local stars. On the deck, there was no one but Ace and Jinbai, who were still tied to the mast. Hey, Luffy. How long are you going to leave me tied up here? This isn't funny. Ace immediately complained in a teasing tone. Ace, I had forgotten about you. Luffy replied with a smile to his brother. Forgotten? You say you forgot? I'm going to beat you up, Luffy. Ace shouted, clearly frustrated. Calm down, calm down. You're free now. Luffy, in a casual gesture, removed the sea stone handcuffs from Ace. I swear I'll get my revenge one day, Luffy. I swear. Ace continued, still frustrated. Ace, I did this so you could realize you're still too dependent on your devil fruit. Look how vulnerable you were. Even Chopper could beat you in that state. Luffy warned him, trying to teach a lesson. Doubt that anyone could do what you did. Ace murmured, and Luffy sighed, knowing his brother was still annoyed. Come with me, brother, let's talk a bit. Luffy invited, starting to walk. Ace hesitated for a moment, wanting to ask Luffy to free Jinbai, but knowing that Luffy probably wouldn't grant the request. Finally, Ace followed Luffy to the bow of the ship, where Luffy took out some rum and served it in a glass for Ace. Meanwhile, the ship cut through the desert at night, sliding over the dunes under the starry night sky. Just like old times, huh, Ace? Luffy said, as they shared a moment alone under the starry desert sky, where the stars shone brightly without any other light to outshine them. Luffy. Ace began, hesitant, but took his glass of sake. You know, I recently discovered something about Sabo. Luffy said, turning to sit on the head of Eferet, the front part of the Black Pearl. Ace froze for a moment. Sabo. What do you mean? He died a long time ago. Ace's voice was laden with surprise and a tinge of old pain. Luffy looked toward the horizon, his expression serious. He didn't die. He simply said. What? Ace's surprise was palpable. Are you telling me that Sabo, our brother we thought had died in that damned city, is actually alive? The urgency in his voice grew with each word. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Luffy confirmed, still looking at the dunes of sand passing by them. Ace quickly climbed up beside Luffy on the head of Eferet, the urgency clear on his face. Tell me everything you know, Luffy. Luffy took a sip of his sake before beginning. He didn't die that day. But he had some issues because of an attack by a Tenri Obito. Sabo lost his memory, but he's alive, just doesn't remember us. Luffy's words were measured but clear. He's with the Revolutionary Army now, a high-ranking person. Probably even stronger than you. Ace absorbed the words, the revelation stirring something within him. Luffy continued to speak, telling everything he knew, mentioning the changes in this world, but confirming the truth he knew, Sabo was alive. In the end, he even teased Ace a little. The desert wind blew gently as the brothers shared this new reality under the starry sky, a moment of discovery, revelation, and reaffirmation of bonds that never really broke. Revolutionary Army. He's really there, Luffy? Ace asked, still shocked by his brother's revelation. Yes. One day, we'll meet him. I'm sure his memories will come back as soon as he sees us. Luffy replied confidently, taking a sip of his sake. Ace nodded, the emotion clear in his eyes. I believe you, Luffy. I don't know how you got this information, but I trust you. We'll find Sabo. He said, a tear of hope and relief streaming down his face. Luffy, noticing his brother's emotion, changed the subject. So, are you going to stay with me until we leave Alabasta? He asked, curious. No. I'm hunting someone. I need to continue this pursuit. Ace replied, his expression hardening. Would this person happen to be Blackbeard, by any chance? Luffy asked casually, taking another sip of sake. What? You know him? Ace exclaimed, surprised by Luffy's knowledge. Not personally. But I've heard that a man by that name caused havoc in the Drum Kingdom. I thought maybe he was the one you were looking for. Luffy explained. Drum Kingdom? So he was there? Ace murmured to himself, piecing things together. Luffy shook his head. You won't find him there anymore. At this point, he must be on the other side of the Grand Line with the time he attacked the kingdom, which was weeks ago. Ace nodded, absorbing the information. I see. You must be careful with this man, Ace. If my suspicions are correct, he possesses the power of a very powerful devil fruit. Luffy warned, serious. Even so, I have to go after him. He killed a man on our ship, and as long as I am the commander of the 2nd Division, it's my duty to punish him. Ace said with determination. The responsibility weighed in his words, the gravity of his role as commander clear in his eyes and the punishment of Teach. Luffy, hearing his brother's conviction, insisted. Don't you want my help? I have a bad feeling about this, brother. Luffy spoke seriously. This is my fight, Luffy. He was my subordinate. I need to handle this myself. Ace replied firmly, closing the door to any possibility of discussion. Luffy sighed, knowing how stubborn Ace was. Just one thing I ask you, don't rely too much on your devil fruit, Ace. The flame fruit model, fire human devil fruit is strong, but it doesn't make you invincible. Luffy wanted Ace to understand the importance of not underestimating his opponents, remembering past mistakes. Ace nodded, giving a half smile. Don't worry about me, Luffy. I know how to take care of myself," he assured. "I hope so. Just don't make me have to rescue you from Impel Down or Manafort if you get into trouble," Luffy murmured, half serious, half joking, eliciting a raised eyebrow from Ace. Luffy could tell Ace he would meet him in Jaya, but he kept it a secret. He didn't want them to meet so soon, and Luffy knew he couldn't make Ace stay with him without going against his will. Ace had his own adventures, and Luffy understood that very well. A comfortable and thoughtful silence fell between them after that, as the ship continued to cut through the sands of the desert under the mantle of night. The silence between Luffy and Ace lasted only a moment, soon replaced by a conversation that stretched into the night. The two brothers shared more about their adventures and dreams. The conversation flowed easily between them, filled with laughter, confessions, and some moments of serious reflection. They reminisced about their childhood days, the challenges they faced, and the lessons learned on that isolated part of Dawn Island. Ace talked about his life in the Whitebeard Pirates, his crewmates, and the search for Blackbeard. Luffy listened attentively, sometimes interrupting with curious questions or lively comments. Luffy, in turn, shared his experiences as captain of the Straw Hats, the places he had visited, and the people he had met. He talked about his goals and how he planned to make the impossible possible. Ace listened, his pride for his brother shining in his eyes, even as he teased or provoked Luffy for his escapades. The night passed quickly, wrapping them in its cloak of tranquility and brotherhood. Finally, the sky began to lighten, announcing the arrival of a new day. The first lights of dawn touched the sands of the desert, dinging everything with golden and pink hues. Luffy and Ace fell silent, watching the sunrise on the horizon, a moment of shared peace and beauty. Without sleep and the deck beginning to fill with their crewmates and Jinbai still tied up, they decided to prepare a feast to celebrate Ace's presence. Feast. Feast Sama. Food. Some members celebrated as always, even though it was a quite recurrent situation among the crew since the captain was a big fan of parties and always made them whenever he could. With the help of Reijo, who was always ready to show off his culinary skills, and the other excited members contributing, the deck of the Black Pearl transformed into a festive scene with food and drink. Ace, despite his initial intention to leave soon, couldn't resist Luffy's warm invitation and decided to stay for the banquet. He chatted and laughed with the crew members, feeling part of that large eccentric and welcoming crew, even if for a short while. They fell asleep again. Kuina exclaimed in astonishment. "It's the third time this has happened." Reijo had to throw away her cigarette, surprised by the scene in front of her. "Lami? Could this be some kind of disease? What if it's a contagious virus? Quick, call a doctor." Chopper shouted alarmed. "I think you're exaggerating, Chopper. It must be something family-related. Luffy always sleeps in front of his family," Usopp said with a lost tone. "Both are quite strange." Even Jinbai had to comment while tied up. He was lucky that Shirahoshi and Ecchi brought food for him too. Luffy and Ace woke up a while later as if nothing had happened, and they began to laugh and talk to each other, leaving everyone even more bewildered by the lack of awareness of those two. As the day progressed and the sun began to tilt in the sky, Ecchi steered the helm of the Black Pearl towards a nearby coast, a place where Ace could disembark and continue his journey. The ship docked smoothly on the sand, and everyone gathered on the deck to say goodbye. Ace, now ready to leave, looked at Luffy and the other crew members. "Thanks for everything, guys. This was a moment I'll never forget. Take care of my brother, I know he causes a lot of trouble." His voice was laden with gratitude and a hint of sadness for the farewell. Luffy approached, extending his hand for one last handshake. "Take care, brother. And remember what we talked about. We're always here for you and be careful. We'll find Sabo later together, you hear?" Ace nodded, a determined smile on his face. "I know. And remember, Luffy, you're not invincible either. Be careful out there. Another thing, don't hurt Jinbai, that's the only thing I ask of you." "Alright, Ace. Jinbai is already part of this crew, look how comfortable he is." Luffy waved his hat confidently. "I can hear everything and I never said I would join your crew, stop jumping to strange conclusions." Jinbai shouted from the mast, and Luffy laughed at that. With final words of encouragement and hugs, Ace jumped from the ship, leaving behind the crew. Luffy had taken his boat that he uses to move with his flame fruit model, Fire Human Devil Fruit, and Ace went ahead, leaving Alabasta. "Your brother is a cool guy, Luffy," Zoro said, recalling how they drank together and how charismatic and likable Ace was. "Ha ha ha. He is, it's a pity he doesn't listen to me, but everyone has their own adventure, and I respect that," Luffy said with a reflective look towards where Ace was moving away from the coast. "And are we going to Crocodile's base still, Luffy?" Vivi asked curiously. "Yes, we're heading north, towards Crocodile's base. We're going to kick his butt and put an end to the nonsense he's been doing in the country," Luffy announced, as everyone prepared the ship to move again. Jinbai looked bewildered at Luffy, as he didn't know that this pirate planned to take down 7 warlords of the seas. Why are you looking at me like that? Ace took down 7 warlords of the seas, so I'll do the same. Luffy said with a smile. He knows that in the original work, Ace did exactly that, which is why the world government tried to recruit him at the time, but Ace refused. Chapter 137, Alabasta 06. The Black Pearl continued to sail through the desert, a nearly surreal vision against the vast sea of sand. The rolling dunes stretched for miles in every direction, a golden ocean of sand under the clear blue sky. With its sails unfurled, it cut through the dunes as if it were navigating calm waters. This ship was worth every one of the millions I spent on it. Luffy murmured, looking at the landscape the ship was passing through. On deck, there was a flurry of activity, with crew members attending to their tasks, chatting, and laughing, while others simply enjoyed the journey, marveled by the unique landscape surrounding them, as it was a time of rest before returning to training. Chopper was adapting very well to the crew in Luffy's opinion, and he was happy about it, seeing him having fun with Usopp and Bippo while they played silly and childish pranks. From time to time, the ship encountered an oasis, a splash of green and water amidst the vastness of the desert. At these stops, the crew would disembark to replenish their water supplies, briefly explore, and sometimes even take a quick refreshing dip or train in the middle of the desert. As the day progressed, the shadows of the dunes grew longer, and the sunlight became softer, tinting the sky in shades of orange, pink, and purple. Night quickly approached and was marked not only by the chilly temperature but also by a lively feast that Luffy insisted on redoing. The next day, Ecchi spotted something moving in the sand in the distance. Initially, they appeared to be small hills moving against the wind, but as they approached, they realized they were some giant creatures heading towards the ship from beneath the sand. "These are desert lizards," Vivi exclaimed quickly. As they approached the ship, they revealed themselves as immense creatures with scaly skins and vigilant eyes. These desert reptiles, accustomed to dominating their territory, saw the Black Pearl as a threat or perhaps a meal. The crew quickly sprang into action. Luffy, not wanting to get involved this time, encouraged the crew to prepare for defense. Usopp and Shirahoshi coordinated the cannons, while Lami and Reija got ready to repel any that got too close to the ship. As the lizards neared, the Black Pearl fired its cannons. The explosions echoed through the desert, and the cannonballs hit the lizards with deadly precision, raising clouds of sand and causing confusion among the creatures. The lizards, hit and disoriented, began to die as more bullets hit their heads. "Shirahoshi is so ruthless," Vivi murmured, seeing the mermaid's cannons killing the creatures mercilessly, as she always saw Shirahoshi as a shy princess. "Princess? How can you be so cruel?" Jinbai had a comical face watching the scene. Meanwhile, Shirahoshi screamed with joy while hitting her targets from her cabin. After Lami collected some parts of the dead lizards, Reiju prepared a new feast with a new type of meat. On another occasion, while navigating through a particularly calm region of the desert, the crew spotted another ship in the distance. It was a ship like theirs, moving in the desert. "Desert pirates?" Vivi shouted alarmed. "Does such a thing exist?" Alvida asked a bit dazed. Luffy, with a sparkle in his eyes, ordered them to prepare for the confrontation. He asked Kuina, Alvida, Bippo, and Ecchi to go to the ship using Moonwalk and destroy all the ships. That was quick. Robin commented, seeing their companions returning 10 minutes later with all the enemy ships left destroyed in the sand. As the Black Pearl resumed its navigation through the Alabasta Desert, Vivi naturally assumed the role of a guide, sharing with the crew the secrets and wonders of her kingdom. With eyes shining with pride and a hint of nostalgia, she described each peculiarity of the vast desert. "See those rock formations in the distance," Vivi pointed excitedly. "They are known as the Needles of Taru. Legend has it they were created by a desert spirit to protect an ancient treasure." The crew members gathered around her, listening attentively as they observed the landscape. "Ancient treasure?" Bippo, Usopp, and Chopper shouted excitedly. "Alabasta is one of the oldest regions in the world, and its sands hide more stories than one can imagine," Robin explained, attracting fascinated looks from the crew members. Usopp, with his fertile imagination, asked about the desert creatures, and Vivi laughed before sharing stories about the legendary monsters and exotic animals that, according to legends, inhabited the dunes. Chopper listened with special interest, imagining the strange and wonderful creatures that might exist. Vivi looked out over the desert horizon, her eyes reflecting the vastness and mysteries of Alabasta. "The Alabasta Desert is a place of extreme beauty and extreme danger, as we've already seen," she began, her voice laden with a mix of respect and awe. "But there is still much more beneath these sands than stories and legends. Ancient secrets and forgotten powers lie waiting to be discovered, and many of them are unknown even to my family." Her dreamy tone blended with pride, demonstrating her deep love for her kingdom and curiosity for the unknown. Luffy, hearing Vivi's words, felt the flame of adventure burn even stronger within him. He remembered the original Luffy, who had discovered mysterious things in the desert, perhaps a poneglyph. Motivated by this thought, he quickly accessed the system, an interface that allowed him to search for valuable information and resources. He typed hidden treasure in the Alabasta Desert and his eyes sparkled as hundreds of maps and documents appeared. Among them, one in particular caught his attention, the most expensive, costing millions of points. Without hesitation, Luffy used all his last points to acquire it, thinking that even if it was false, it would still be the start of an adventure in the desert. Bippo! Luffy called, turning to the polar bear. Bippo, surprised by the sudden call, quickly approached. Yes, Captain? His voice showed curiosity. Luffy extended the newly acquired map to Bippo. I need you to help me find something in this desert, he said, his tone serious. Bippo looked at the map, his analytical eyes scanning every detail, every mark, and symbol showing their position. He murmured to himself as he traced possible routes and marked points of interest. Captain, I believe we are half a day's journey from this place, it lies to the east. His voice was firm, indicating his confidence in the navigation skills he possessed. Luffy, with a firm nod, turned to Ecchi. Ecchi, follow Bippo's instructions, we might have a treasure to find. His smile was wide. Ecchi, with his agile tentacles, adjusted the course of the ship, following the directions given by the navigator when Nami was not with them. Chopper, unable to contain his excitement, jumped up. Wait. That's the direction of the Needles of Taru. His voice was a mixture of excitement after hearing Vivi's story. The rest of the crew echoed the excitement with shouts of treasure. Treasure. Imagining finding lots of gold and a great adventure. Vivi, on the other hand, looked at Luffy with some concern. Hey, Luffy, are you sure? This is just a legend, and where did you get that map? Luffy replied with a confident smile, holding the map in front of him. I bought it, it was expensive, so I hope to find something with it. His voice was full of optimism, the possibility of the map being false did not diminish his enthusiasm for the adventure ahead. Vivi murmured, more to herself than to the others. I hope you're not wrong. The ship, now firmly on course, advanced towards the east. The desert passed by them, a constantly changing tapestry of dunes and rocks. It was then that Chopper, with his sharp vision, spotted something in the distance. Look! He exclaimed, pointing to a set of pillars that bravely withstood the test of time. The ship went in that direction until stopping near the place. Come on, guys. The treasure won't find itself. Luffy was the first to jump into the sand, closely followed by his friends. Bippo consulted the map again. It should be right here, under our feet, Captain. Luffy walked for a while, tapping the sandy ground using the force and weight of the More fruit model, amplify human devil fruit to feel if he found something until he found a hollow surface walking in a certain direction. It must be here. Luffy murmured internally as he looked at the ground with everyone watching him. He clenched his fists tightly. Energy began to accumulate around him. Then, he pulled his arm back, channeling all his flames into a single focus. Purple flames began to emerge around his fist with more force. With a movement that echoed through the desert, Luffy launched his fist downward. The impact was monumental, an explosion of force and flames that hit the ground with almost tangible fury. The sand around was thrown into the air in a shockwave, and a crater instantly formed where his fist met the earth. The purple flames danced wildly, creating a spectacle of light and shadow. The heat was so intense that it seemed to distort the air around, and the black pearl even swayed with the impact of the captain. As the dust settled, the sunlight penetrated through the opening created by Luffy's powerful punch. Everyone's eyes widened as they realized the extent of what had been uncovered. Below them lay ancient ruins long forgotten. Luffy, with a glint of excitement in his eyes, did not hesitate. See you inside. He shouted, his body already in motion as he fearlessly leaped into the abyss. The crew, though stunned by their captain's sudden actions, wasted no time in following him. One by one, each person overcame the initial shock and moved towards the opening, driven by curiosity and the desire to explore the unknown. Incredible, there shouldn't be ruins here. Vivi exclaimed, her voice full of surprise and admiration. She turned to Lami, seeking assistance to safely descend into the mysterious depths. Lami then helped Vivi with his room. Luffy, with a practical gesture, began to light up the place with flames, revealing more of the ancient corridors and chambers that stretched before them. The atmosphere within the ruins was pure wonder and respect. Each crew member, immersed in their own curiosity, explored the corridors and chambers with eyes shining in admiration. Usopp murmured, almost to himself. This is incredible. As his eyes scanned the high walls covered with inscriptions and images from the past. Robin, with her passion for history and archaeology, walked with an attentive gaze over every detail. Gently touching the surface of an engraved stone, she spoke in an emotional tone. This is very ancient. Meanwhile, the energy and noise of the companion animals filled the air. Sharky. Megalo, be careful not to break anything. Worried shouts were heard as the crew's accompanying animals moved cautiously. Chouchou barked with excitement, his woof woof echoing through the ancient stones. Chopper, always curious and amazed by new discoveries, found an ancient helmet and, unable to resist, tried it on. Look at this helmet! He exclaimed, his voice muffled by the ancient metal as he turned to show the others. Zoro, where are you going? Someone called, trying to prevent the swordsman from getting lost as usual. Hey, emo woman, be careful not to break one of these pillars that support the roof, I don't want to get buried. Reiju warned, while Lami responded with a sharp retort. I should be keeping an eye on you, damn cook. Where is Luffy? He must be further ahead. The voices mixed, each expressing a mixture of concern and excitement. It was then that Luffy's voice broke through the murmur of conversations. Hey, Robin. Come here. I found 2 more poneglyphs. The news reverberated through the ruins, immediately capturing everyone's attention. Their eyes lit up with recognition of the significance of Luffy's discovery, and she quickly moved towards the voice of her captain. Chapter 138, Alabasta 07. Robin quickened her pace, a mix of anticipation and urgency in her movement as she navigated through the ancient corridors. Following the origin of Luffy's voice and the trail of purple flames he left behind, she quickly found him at the end of the hallway in front of 2 ancient stones. Her heart raced with the possibility of a new discovery about a history of the lost century. She arrived at the spot where Luffy stood. The captain was standing, his imposing figure before the 2 poneglyphs. They were massive stone blocks, covered with the intricate glyphs of the ancient language. The sight of new poneglyphs made Robin's heart race even more. 2 poneglyphs. She murmured, still in disbelief, having found 4 of these stones in the last few weeks as opposed to nearly 2 decades of pursuit and no results. Luffy turned to hear her approach, a broad and confident smile on his face. Can you read them? Robin stepped closer, touching the cold surface of the stones with trembling fingers, feeling the deep connection to history that only an archaeologist like her could understand. Robin, what is this? Luffy asked amid the silence as the rest of the crew approached. It's an ancient story, Luffy, about a very powerful queen of Alabasta during the lost century. Robin began, her calm and gentle voice filling the air around them. Her name was Nefertari Lily. Lily. I've heard of her. Luffy spoke a bit thoughtfully as he rummaged through his memories. He didn't remember this part of the story very well but recognized the name Lily. But something intriguing there, Nefertari is also a D. Luffy pointed out. It seems so. Robin commented. So Nefertari Vivi isn't our second princess's full name. Luffy smiled, a bit surprised that Vivi was a D. 2. Luffy approached Robin and asked about the scriptures. So, what does it say about Queen Lily here? He asked, his voice filled with genuine interest. Robin began to translate, her voice slightly echoing off the stone walls around them. Nefertari Lily was a ruler of Alabasta during the lost century. She was known for her wisdom and strength. During the lost century, a time of great conflicts and secrets, she faced challenges that threatened not just her kingdom but all the knowledge of the world. So there aren't many details, are there? Luffy asked, already imagining that these blocks just said generic things. Luffy was intrigued to know how someone with D. allied with the world government at the time, since the Nefertaris were one of the few that remained in their kingdoms, unlike the other world nobles according to his memories. She looked at Luffy before continuing. The story tells that, in response to the oppressive forces of that time, Queen Lily made a journey to a distant and unexplored place. There, she founded a refuge, an island known today as Amazon Lily. Luffy, a bit surprised by this, murmured, the Island of Women? Well, the place bears her name. Yes. Confirmed Robin with a nod. She created a sanctuary for women from all parts, a place where they could live freely, train their skills, and keep the flame of resistance of that time alive, even though it doesn't say much against what she was fighting. Amazon Lily was not just a refuge, it was a symbol of defiance and hope for Lily. Luffy smiled. She sounds incredible, like a true adventurer. It's a shame we'll be without answers for many questions. Luffy said with some regret. Robin smiled back, happy to share the story. She really was, Luffy. As Robin spoke with Luffy, a familiar figure approached, drawn by the conversation. Vivi had heard of Nefertari Lily in her own history lessons, but the information was scarce and often shrouded in secrecy. Robin, Luffy, are you talking about Queen Lily? Vivi asked, her eyes shining with renewed interest and curiosity. I grew up hearing fragments of stories about her. Lily was known in Alabasta as the greatest queen Alabasta ever had. Luffy turned to her. Do you know why she chose not to go to marry Ejos? Vivi shook her head. No, Nobody knows. It's said she was one of the few, if not the only, monarch from the Alliance who refused the invitation to become a world noble. Instead, she chose to stay with her people, protecting the secrets and sovereignty of Alabasta. Robin nodded in acknowledgement. That explains part of what I read on the poneglyphs. Lily was a woman of unshakable principles. She believed that true leadership came from being with her people, especially during times of adversity. Vivi smiled, proud of her legacy. Lily was more than a queen, she was a symbol of resistance and strength. History says she was incredibly wise and powerful, a leader who inspired both respect and love. It's fascinating, said Robin. How the actions of one person can echo through the centuries. Lily didn't just create a refuge in Amazon Lily, but she also left an indelible mark on Alabasta. She defined the spirit of our kingdom as a place of honor and resistance. Vivi agreed, looking at the poneglyphs with a new perspective. Learning more about her makes me even prouder to be from Alabasta. And it makes me want to protect our legacy and our secrets, just like she did. As Robin and Vivi spoke animatedly like never before, since Vivi had some apprehension about Robin for being an important agent of an organization aiming to harm Alabasta and Vivi's family, the other crew members explored the area. Hugo was scouring a forgotten part of the ruins when his eyes caught the glint of something unusual. It was a box, dusty and ancient, but clearly distinctive with symbols that echoed those of the poneglyphs. He opened the box out of curiosity and was surprised to find a devil fruit with brown hues. "Hey, Captain. I found a devil fruit," he called to Luffy, who turned to him a bit surprised. "Really? Let's see," Luffy asked. "Here." Hugo passed the box to Luffy, who quickly analyzed and understood it, before calling Robin. "Robin, read what's written here, please." Luffy was excited to know what fruit it was. He didn't plan to replace anyone's fruit that he already planned for the crew, but still wanted to know if it might be a fruit worth having. Robin, seeing the box, approached quickly. She dusted off the surface, revealing the intricate symbols. Her expression became serious and focused as she read the inscriptions. "Life fruit model, Titan," she murmured to herself. Her tone was one of confusion. The name didn't tell her much, but the gravity of the ancient symbols indicated it was something of great importance. Luffy, hearing the translation, froze for a moment, then his eyes widened in total surprise. "The Titan fruit? Here?" he exclaimed, almost not believing what he heard. "I never imagined finding something like this here. And by Hugo's hands." Robin looked at him, surprised by his reaction. "Luffy, do you know what this is?" This also caught the attention of all the others nearby. Luffy nodded, seriousness taking over his usually cheerful face. "Of course. For this is a fruit I plan to obtain anyway. This isn't an ordinary fruit. It belongs to the fruits that Nami and I possess, the Econs. The same fruit of beasts that you and Nami have?" Nojiko exclaimed in surprise, as she would never forget Luffy and Nami fighting against each other on her island and Luffy releasing that monster in Little Garden. Titan is the greatest beast among the Econs and can control the element of earth. In the black market, this fruit would cost more than 5 billion just to obtain it. 5 billion? Vivi shouted, her voice echoing throughout the ruin. "Crew. GRR." The scream was so loud that it startled Crew and Laboon. "But how did this end up here?" Vivi asked again, her voice a whisper of awe and uncertainty. Robin, still looking at the symbols, speculated, perhaps it was left here as a form of protection, as a reinforcement for the war in the lost century, like the case of Chaochu's fruit, Cerberus. "This fruit is a blessing for the crew, it saved me 5 billion, I couldn't be less pleased." Luffy spoke in a quite pleasant tone. Everyone who heard nodded with the captain's reasoning. They had no idea they would find a city of gold in the sky like Luffy, so the meaning of saving 5 billion was greater for them than the captain himself. "Explore the place, anything you find you can take with you,"